being held on November 16th, 2020 at 7 o'clock. Please rise and join in the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America
and to
and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
indivisible, with
liberty.
liberty and justice for all.
Please join us in a moment of silence as we reflect on those serving in the United States Armed Forces, both past and present, the elected leaders for the state of Pennsylvania, and elected leaders of our nation. We have much to be thankful for in our community. Please be seated. All right. Item 3, which is executive session announcement. The Board of School Directors met on the following dates in executive session to discuss items in one or more of the following areas: personnel or legal matters on October 26, 2020 at 5:30 p.m., November 16th, 2020 at 6:30 p.m., and a board workshop was held on October 20th, 2020 at 6 p.m. All right, item 4, superintendent's report.
All right, sorry, I muted myself there. Mr. Sanfrancesco's in control here this evening. So let's begin with hearing from our student representative, Dante DiNardo. I think Mr. Sanfran has to unmute. There he is. Hi, Dante.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you.
So tonight we'll start with the elementary schools. East Coventry Elementary donated $800 to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Association from a recent fundraiser by its K-Kids Club. Students in grades 4 through 6 are busy getting ready for the upcoming virtual science research competition and science fair. Students are developing their research plans to submit for approval. Once approved, students will begin carrying out their experiments, collecting data, and creating their presentations in preparation for the March competition. This opportunity is open for all students, including those in our Cyber Academy. On Friday, November 13th, a drive through recognition was held for local veterans. A brief ceremony honored their service while the students of East Coventry waved them on with American flags. At East Vincent Elementary School, students started earning Wowzer $200 acknowledgement tickets for displaying one. Some or all of the Go Cats qualities, which are choose kindness, act respectfully, take responsibility, and stay safe. There is a mystery prize that will earn for blended students once 10 numbers are filled in a row on the Wowzer 200 board in the lobby. Daily Wowzer 200 winners are announced at dismissal. And students will receive a positive email home to a parent or guardian. Similarly, East Vincent Cyber Academy students earn recognition as Student of the Day. Student of the Day recipients will also be able to participate in monthly school-wide acknowledgements, and all students will be eligible for Student of the Month, which each homeroom teacher will be submitting a student for this recognition. Almost 100 students contributed to a video message of sincere thank yous to veterans who are connected to the East Vincent community of learners. Additionally, East Vincent students made over 100 customized cards with colorful designs and endearing messages of thanks and appreciation. The cards were being distributed to veterans in the Southeastern Pennsylvania Veterans Home located in Spring City, and East Vincent wants to say thank you to all those in the East Vincent community of learners who have served our country. Unfortunately, French Creek was unable to host our annual Veterans Day breakfast and assembly this year, but students were invited to contribute to a virtual Veterans Day assembly to honor all those who have served our country. Students interviewed friends and family, and all the interviews were included in one special online tribute. French Creek 6th graders participated in a Safe to Say Something lessons with Dr. McKillop and Mrs. Baylor last week to learn how to recognize the signs and signals of at-risk behavior and report concerns anonymously to trusted adults through the Safe to Say Something app, website, or telephone hotline. Lastly, French Creek students and staff celebrated World Kindness Day on Friday and enjoyed practicing random acts of kindness throughout the day. This week, the French Creek school community is celebrating American Education Week. So, big news from North Coventry. The Pennsylvania Positive Behavior Support Network informed North Coventry that they met the criteria for implementing school-wide at Tier 1 with fidelity during the 2019-2020 school year. North Coventry will receive the following recognition at the 2020 virtual PA PPS Network recognition celebration on November 13th, 2020, which passed. But congrats to all the students and staff for earning this award, and keep up the good work. On October 30th, 2 students in each grade level at North Coventry were recognized for their exceptional performance and trustworthiness throughout the day. This is an important characteristic of our PBIS program at North Coventry. Congrats to all 14 students that earned the award. North Coventry unveiled their special area class recognition board at the start of November. Congratulations to the students in Mr. Gunson, Mr. Griffith, Mrs. Colfer, and Mrs. Schwank's classes, and for being chosen as the top-notch special area classrooms for the first part of November. The PTA at West Vincent has been working hard at creating opportunities for the West Vincent school community to feel connected. As a kickoff for the annual Fall Book Fair, which is being held November 9th through 22nd, the PTA is hosting Book Fair bedtime stories. Students and families are invited to virtually listen to stories read by West Vincent teachers, community members, Dr. Lloyd, and Mr. Smith. This is an excellent opportunity to feel connected with the West Vincent school community. This year's Veterans Day celebration will be a virtual event that will take place on November 11th, 2020 at 9 a.m. It will be broadcasted live on West Vincent Facebook. Mr. Smith has invited students to participate in a virtual Veterans Day celebration by asking them to recognize their veteran with a recorded video introduction. We look forward to this special moment each year when we pause in celebration and reflect on those who serve our country. Now on to the middle school. On October 28th, several of our middle school students were recognized by their respective teachers as our Wildcat Pride winners for the month of October. A virtual ceremony was held for those students, with parents, teachers, and administrators also attending. Our next batch of winners will be held this Wednesday, November 18th. Middle school students generously donated numerous items to our collection drive for the Coventry Food Pantry this year. As is tradition at the middle school, every item donated earns a student a vote toward one of our teachers getting pied in the face. Our lucky teachers to receive that honor this year are 7th grade math teacher, Mr. Charlson, and 8th grade ELA teacher, Mrs. Riggins. Our fall sports participants wrapped up successful seasons last week. By all accounts, their respective seasons went off without a hitch. Our 7th grade football team is worthy of special recognition as they went undefeated this fall. Congratulations to them and to all of our fall sports participants and coaches. Impact tests for winter sports will be held this past week in preparation for that season. On Thursday, November 12th, all middle school students participated in some special activities geared towards educating them on some of the pitfalls and dangers they face within a digital world. Mr. Sanfrancesco hosted a Google Meet in the morning to discuss how students can create and maintain a positive digital footprint. In the afternoon, all students watched the indie flicks movie, The Upstanders. The movie takes a hard look at the effects of online bullying and harassment and the harm that can be caused by our words and actions through social media. After the movie, students were able to participate in a webinar to further discuss the topic. There were numerous activities taking place in the middle school this past week in recognition of Veterans Day. Many teachers delivered mini lessons in their classes and or during their WIN period, and our life skills students created and mailed close to 50 thank you cards to veterans, including some of our bus drivers. We also took time to recognize some veterans on our staff, namely Mr. Stanley, Mr. Kramer, and Mrs. Sullivan. So thank you for your service to them. On Saturday, October 24th, 13 cadets from the Owen J. Roberts High School NJROTC competed in Warwick Park for an orienteering meet hosted by Mary Frank and the Delaware Valley Orienteering Association. Mock trial received their case material a week earlier, which everyone competing was thrilled to see. It was a thoughtful gesture from the Pennsylvania Bar Association and very much appreciated. They also received rules for virtual competition and have started to assemble prosecution and defense teams. DECA has been preparing virtually for the virtual district competition in December. DECA members competing in the competition will take the career focus test and case study through an online platform this year. On behalf of the high school football team and coaches, Coach Kolko would like to extend a sincere thank you to the board for the decision of allowing us to play football this season. There were 0 cases and 0 people quarantined during the season, making it very successful on both on and off the field. Thank you. And I would also like to give a personal thank you to you guys for that. The students of the Leo Club and the National Honor Society were great help at the after-school food donation collections and supported the Coventry Food Pantry. The collection was in lieu of the usual collections of the Make a Difference Day Fill the Bus collection and the Roberts Education Association Safe Trick or Treat Night. The collection was successful and several vans of food had been taken to the pantry. Students can now help with online submissions or quick tech needs from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. by going to meet code TPAC. The Tech Pack is a new club that runs a virtual help desk from 7 to 3 Monday through Friday, or Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, sorry. They run at 11 to 3 p.m. on Wednesday, as well as a help desk for outside of school hours. Check them out on Twitter at OJR_TPAC. The Key Club will be running a coat drive for the months of November and December. Donations from the community and students can be dropped off in the lobby of the main office. The National English Honor Society, Wildcats in Literature, was thrilled to accept 55 applications for new members in the 2020-2021 school year. Welcome to all. The induction ceremony will be held virtually in early December, so keep an eye out for more information. Finally, Ski and Snowboard Club is happy to offer its members and community members discounted student and season passes through October 31st. Although the club isn't able to travel together, at least there is an option to participate individually or as a family in outdoor sport and be on the mountain. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Dante. I'm going to start my report with celebrations, and I understand you have a celebration.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, tell the board what your celebration is.
This past weekend, right? It was this past, yeah, this past weekend, I committed to Drake University to play football.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Congratulations.
Go Bulldogs.
Yes, go Bulldogs.
Nice.
Congratulations, Dante. Also, it's Madam President's birthday today. I know she's happy for me to announce that publicly to everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Lloyd.
So our new East Vincent Elementary School that was designed by Main Architects in Lancaster received the Excellence in Design Award on November 5th by the Central Pennsylvania American Institute of Architects. Congratulations to Mrs. Booth and Mrs. Crumrine, who both worked on that project.
Thank you.
I would I'd also like to congratulate Special Education Supervisor Jeff Ball on earning his doctoral degree from Immaculata University this past weekend. Dr. Ball's dissertation was on school administrators' perception of special education law and litigation impacted on programming and design and decision-making. Congratulations, Dr. Ball. The equity listening sessions that the school board and I are hosting began last week at West Vincent at the high school. I believe that the board will agree that these sessions were very enlightening, and we are enjoying speaking with parents on topics such as race, gender equity, and inclusion of special needs students. More sessions are scheduled throughout November and December, and information regarding dates and times are listed on the district's website. In response to the allegations brought against Steve Brott, our district has partnered with the Crime Victims Center of Chester County to offer Respect at Work training. These virtual training sessions will be held for all high school staff on November the 18th. The training focuses on preventing workplace harassment by creating a respectful environment. Studies have shown that preventing sexual harassment goes a long way to creating a culture that prevents sexual assault. Most workplace trainings focus on the legal aspects of sexual harassment, while Respect at Work training focuses on building a positive workplace culture, imparting positive knowledge and behaviors, and bystander intervention skills. Once again, the district is hosting the parent workshop, Stewards of Children. We prefer this program because it is the only evidence-informed, adult-focused child sexual abuse prevention training in the United States, proven to increase knowledge and change behavior. Numerous studies have shown that prevention education works, and evidence-informed training can change child protective behaviors in adults. I encourage all parents and grandparents to attend this workshop on November 18th or December 15th. More information on how to register is on our website and on our Facebook page. Lastly, in order to give the Board of School Directors ample notice, I am announcing my retirement from the Owen J. Roberts School District. My contract will be fulfilled on July 1, and so I will finish this school year, giving the school board 7 months to conduct a search for a new superintendent. During my remaining months, I intend to focus on the district's goals that will be approved here tonight, the district-wide equity action plan, and of course, the health and safety of our students and the district's employees during this pandemic. Thank you, Madam President. This concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Lloyd. First and foremost, I want to say congratulations to you, Dr. Lloyd, for hitting such a huge milestone and accomplishment in your life. You've done so much for the educational world, for Owen J. Roberts, and for our students. You continue to put our students first, and it shows. I have to say, what has been most notable for me after working with you so closely for the past year and through this pandemic is your drive and your vision. When our schools shut down in March, you worked tirelessly to not only make sure our children could receive an equitable education, but that they were fed and taken care of. The moment it was announced we were able to return to in-person education, you quickly put a plan together and were able to get our in-person ESY up and running. And you developed a plan for the school year that allowed our parents to choose what educational model best suited them. After speaking with many board presidents in the area, I feel ONJ has been very lucky to have someone with your determination. You will be a hard person to replace. We are sad to see you go, but your accomplishments will be celebrated, and we hope you will enjoy your retirement and spend as much time with those adorable grandbabies as possible.
Thank you.
Every year, ONJ Roberts contributes to the CCIU in order to participate in services rendered. A confidential superintendent search is one of those services. The CCIU has placed almost all of the superintendents in Chester County, and they have a vested interest in helping ONJ Roberts hire the best of the best. They are often sought by other districts outside of the county to help with superintendent searches, and these searches come with a hefty cost of $25,000. Because we pay into the CCIU, we will not be charged any fees, but only actual expenses. We are on a tight timeline here, as qualified candidates may have to provide their existing districts a 60 to 90-day notice of their plan to leave. We also anticipate that this will be an extremely competitive year for superintendent searches, so the sooner we can get underway, the better. in order to have a new superintendent prepared to begin the 21-22 school year at OJR. For this reason, I am asking the board to consider approving the CCIU's confidential search proposal this evening. If approved, we will be inviting Dr. George Fiore, the executive director for the CCIU, to publicly present the search process at our December 7th school board meeting. I highly encourage the public, if you have any questions, to please send them to us ahead of time. We'll make sure he receives these questions and can share answers. But with that being said, I am asking for a motion to add item 13.11 to the agenda to retain Chester County Intermediate Unit to conduct a confidential superintendent search pursuant to its proposal, providing for a waiver of all fees for staff time and limiting district costs to reimbursement of actual expenses. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
There you go.
Mr. Deal, do I have a second?
Second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. DeFore. Do I need to have everyone vote, or is it? Yes, okay. Any discussion?
I just think, Leslie, it is prudent in a year where many families are going to be suffering from the economic impact that we do as thorough a job, yet with a mind towards the economic side of things as well. And I think leveraging the CCIU, who placed a majority of the superintendents in our county, is the correct path to follow, especially given this year.
And I'd add, they also have a network that they can leverage where other agencies might not as much. So there's a quality issue at stake here, not just the financial issue.
As the representative of our school district on the CCIU board, I was able to see a little bit of how they went about finding an assistant executive director for the CCIU itself. I imagine that the process would be similar for a superintendent search, and it seemed to me to be a very well-founded process. They just hired the candidate at our last board meeting, so I had a good impression of the overall process through that.
Any other comments?
Well, I would just like to comment on Dr. Lloyd's retirement. She's going to be sorely missed. I don't think many people understand her connectivity to the students and the parents of this community. I do not think we're going to find another superintendent who is going to visit families, visit students when they are in great need, whether it's mental problems, health problems. She is totally dedicated to every student in this district. I think that's it. I may become emotional.
I'm going to
Thank
wait
you.
to become emotional until we get to the actual day, but I would second what Melissa said. Your dedication is unmatched.
Not going anywhere, Mrs. Booth. Yet.
And Mrs. Booth, I think as our resident expert board member on hiring superintendents, you've worked with the CCIU process before, and it's been, beneficial.
Yes, it has. And Mr. DeFore has also been involved as well. So at least we have two of us who have been experienced before, and we'll be able to help those of you who have not, and hopefully maybe adjust proceedings as it goes. And I'm looking forward to it. But again, I don't think we're going to find a match that we have now. But I congratulate you, Dr. Lloyd, and I certainly hope you enjoy your retirement.
Any other comments? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. So we will be adding that 13.11. All right. So we're going to go on to item 5, public comment. Just before we get started, we are going to add a time limit for this section. We're gonna put a time limit, I believe 45 minutes. Is everyone in agreement for 45 minutes? Okay, because we've got a lot to discuss as a board, and we want to make sure that we are able to get to that because there's a lot of people tuning in, and we want people to see our discussions. So just keep in mind, this is our first public comment. This is not our, there is still time to comment. Information, proposals, and statements from individuals or delegations pertaining to items on the agenda. Speakers are to indicate your name, township of residence, and the items on the agenda to which your comments are addressed. Speakers will be limited to no more than 3 minutes. Please understand that this is not a time for dialogue with the board. Rather, the board will listen to all comments and consider them in future deliberations. And then keep in mind, you can also email us at schoolboardmembers@ojrsd.net for a written response. And then just a guideline, please use the raise hand function. And when it's your turn to speak, please state your name, your township of residence, and which item on the agenda you are speaking to.
Mrs. Prophet, at this time, we have Mrs. Heather McCreary.
Okay.
Dr. Soder will keep track of the time for you, Mrs. Prophet.
Thank you.
Mrs. McCreary, you are on mute.
Okay, I wanted to speak on item number, Heather McCreary, East Coventry. Wanted to speak on item, agenda items 13.2, the vote that you guys have on there to move the school to virtual, and 13.1, which is the health and safety plan, and also number 11, which is the goals, which included communication and also the district website. So at the CAL meeting, you guys talked about how kids were not doing very well, and kids are failing. And a big part of that is the problem that children need to be in school. And I found that very concerning when I heard that last Monday. So some of us went through and looked at the dashboards and at all the schools in Chester County, and we counted all the numbers on the schools that had dashboards. And I was glad to see that O&J recently put up the dashboard, but it should also be in keeping with the goals and the communication, the website. It needs to be out by week and by school so that everybody can see where the numbers are with the students and the staff. And if there's only, I think, 3 other schools that don't have dashboards now, and all the Chester County schools, if you counted the ones that are the cases, it comes out to, I believe, 0.21% overall in all of the students and staff that are in all of the schools. That is not a number per the guidelines at Chester County to warrant shutting the schools down. And I think it's a disservice if you guys do not speak up and lobby on behalf of the students in this school that want to be in school. Cyber is a fine choice for those that do not, but for those that want to be in school, kids besides IEP and 504 children need to be in school. They need the contact, they need the physical, being able to be around other people and not the isolation. I would hope that you would consider not voting to go virtual tonight. Other school districts, I am told, are not going to, such as Colonial, Great Valley. I don't think Downingtown is. And I would hope that you school board members would use your voice. There were several seniors that are going to lose a lot that actually worked very hard on behalf of this district. Dante, Kirsten Longworth, and Olivia Kira to keep the activities and the sports on for the fall. They lobbied, they worked very hard for this entire district. And also Declan Sweeney, a junior. These students worked for you guys. You guys need to be working for the rest of the students that are here so that they can keep their school and their activities for their senior year and for everybody's year. Thank you.
Just wanted to comment, the dashboard, when I looked at it earlier, Dr. Lloyd, correct me if I'm wrong, was there a link to look at it broken out per school on the homepage?
Yes, there's a link to go to each individual school. That's embedded under the COVID,
Okay.
our COVID response.
For some reason, I can't see it on my phone, but I think if you log in,
Online,
yeah, you should be able to,
you could be able to see it.
yeah, okay.
Mrs. Prophet, the next person is Karen Sterner. Karen, please give your full name and township of residence. Mrs.
Karen Sterner. Can you hear me? Karen Sterner, North Coventry Township. I emailed everyone earlier today and just wanted to reiterate here, especially since the restrictions that were announced from Philadelphia County after I sent my email. In their press conference, they spoke of the transmission of this virus as not happening in schools, not only in Philadelphia, but in other countries. I know that everyone's end game is the same, to get kids back to school 5 days a week and be safe and healthy. I also understand why that's not a possibility at this time based on the rising numbers that we can't deny. I totally understand the reality of OJR going virtual, and frankly, my son has an IEP, so I have the option to send him or not. However, what I'd like to see is the decisions being made be based on OJR data and not on Chester County data. I understand that agencies have recommendations, but they are recommendations and not orders, and the district has a choice. As of this afternoon, according to the district website, there are 0 cases in elementary schools for staff and students. 3 students in the middle school and 7 students and 2 staff members in the high school are considered COVID cases since the kids returned to hybrid on October 12th. With that said, I'd like to see the board, of course, not go virtual. And if we do, consider K through 8 still remaining hybrid and implementing the alternating Wednesdays that was discussed for these kids. I realize that there are students who are in mixed households with students in the high school, middle school, or even elementary school. And to those parents, I'd say that they have a choice to keep their elementary or middle school students cyber or hybrid. The kids' educations have been compromised since last March, and we owe it to them to give them every opportunity to learn in what has been proven to be a safe environment. As for high school, I would be interested in knowing if the 7 cases are all seniors or if it's mixed throughout the high school grades. My next point that I'd like to make is that if the district does decide to go to any form of virtual, I'm requesting that they consider that winter sports will still move forward. There are many kids who play sports that don't play youth sports in the community. If school sports aren't an option, many of them will look elsewhere to play. By keeping the school teams together, it can limit the exposure of these kids playing someplace else and being exposed to others who are coming from an area that may be higher than the numbers at OJR. I know I'm not alone in saying that these kids need sports as much as they need an education. Fall sports went off with minimal issues. The district did an excellent job with the safety of the kids in school and playing sports, and I'm confident that that can happen again with the revised hybrid and winter sports, even if it's limited to OJR students only doing workouts and not participating in competitions. If competition would be an option, I would be supportive of no fans, and I've already shared with the district that I would volunteer again to coordinate the live streaming of winter sports by parent volunteers if needed. Unless the state steps in and shuts down youth sports, that's okay.
Thank you, Mrs. Sterner.
Mrs. Proper, the next person is Lisa Yoest.
Hi, this is Lisa Yoest from South Coventry Township. My comment is very brief tonight, and I'd just like to thank Dr. Lloyd for her service to the O&J Roberts School District. I always found it very exciting that my elementary school kids knew the name and the face of their superintendent, and I think that just speaks to your commitment to make sure that you were really a part of the school district. I'm sure you never foresaw that you would be closing out your career in leading through a pandemic, but I would really like to thank you for everything you've done, particularly over the last year, to keep the school vibrant, to give the parents options, and to do everything that you can to keep our children both safe and to give them the education they deserve. So thank you very much, Dr. Lloyd.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Yoest.
The next person is Heather Z. Heather Z, please give your full name and township of residence. Heather Z, you do not have a microphone connected to your computer, so we will come back to you. The next person, oh, Heather, there you go. Heather Z. Heather Z, you are unmuted.
Hi, Heather Zabicki, North Coventry Township. I'm speaking on agenda item 13.2. How and why are we rushing a decision to go virtual. There have been no outbreaks in our district. Our kids are failing and falling behind. You are failing these kids with this decision. The kids are safe in school because of the plan that you put into place. There's no reason to keep them from live instruction. You're lacking data and scientific evidence that these kids being in school is unsafe. You are taking away our rights. You are responsible for educating our children. Our children need class time, not screen time. Wednesday curriculum is already a joke, with 1 to 2 hours of assignments assigned and our kids thinking they're getting a break. You need to think about the mental health of these kids. You cannot continue to isolate them. When is the district going to realize the negative impact that they are having on these children? We need 5-day in-person instruction, and we need it now. Now is not the time to go backwards. Now is the time to move forward. Now is the time for the proper education. The option for me should be there for those that don't want to return, but the option should be there for those that want to school. And just a reminder, the OJ web homepage says, inspiring excellence, inspired students. And that's not happening. Do the right thing and keep our kids in school.
Thank you, Mrs. Zabicki.
Mrs. Prophet, the next person is Erin Marcellus.
Hi, Erin Marcellus, North Coventry Township. First of all, Dr. Lloyd, congratulations on your retirement. You will truly, it's a loss for the district and the students to have you leave, but I wish you the best of luck. I do want to speak on school going back to virtual. I do understand the position that the district is in with the health department recommendations. It was kind of brought to my attention that the health department stated that these are just things to consider versus actual recommendations. And within the last half an hour, the health department has stated that they, as a county, are not announcing any new restrictions. So I would like to really see our children stay in school. School is essential, just like Giant and Target and Lowe's. However, if the high school is having outbreaks or staff shortages, I would like us to consider keeping our elementary students in. It is not a one-size-fits-all situation, and I do feel that we have the ability to kind of have some leeway with what we choose to do with our different levels of schooling. All of our students need to be in, but I think if we're able to keep any of our students in, we should really try to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Marcellus.
Madam President, the next person is Bryan. Bryan, please give us your full name and your township of residence. Bryan, you are unmuted.
Great. My name is Bryan Kalish. I'm in the Warwick Township. I'd like to also support the idea of not going virtual across the whole school district and maybe only doing it with the high school, since that seems to be where the health impacts are, according to the numbers. Also, I'd like to point out that going completely virtual really impacts parents that have elementary age children, probably more so than high school age and middle-aged kids even. Elementary kids require more supervision, especially kindergarten and first graders. So we have to consider the upheaval in parents' lives as we make this decision about what grades go virtual and maybe what grades do not go virtual. That's all.
I'm going to butcher your last name. I'm sorry. Thank you, Mr. I think it was Kalish. Thank you.
Madam President, the next person is Kelly Morrow. Kelly, you are unmuted.
All right, thank you so much. First of all, I just want to say that I appreciate everything that the school board, Dr. Lloyd, and the teachers and administration have done for our children. As a preschool teacher, I have been in school since August with my students, and I know it's hard just being in school, so I can't imagine how hard it is to take on 3 or 4 full-time jobs as a teacher, to teach from home, to teach the people virtually, to teach in school. I do agree with a lot of the parents that have come on and talked that we should try to at least keep elementary school in. I have 1 elementary, 1 middle school, and 2 high schoolers. And as hard as it is for my high schoolers to do work at home, I know it's a lot harder for my elementary school. And I'm blessed that my youngest can come to school with me, and we have a little virtual pod going on, but even that is hard. I praise her teacher for the communication that I get when we're having issues, but having 4 children that usually are really great students, this has been a tough year. So if we can keep anybody in, and it could be elementary school, that would be something that would work, I think, a lot better for our students. I understand the decisions have to be made, but that's just my input. So thank you all for all you do.
Thank you, Mrs. Morrow.
The next person, Madam President, is Mark Wolfrey. Mark, please give your full name and township of residence.
My name is Mark Wolfrey. I'm with South Coventry Township. And I wanted to call in tonight to talk about a different pandemic or surge of illness that's occurring in the United States right now. And it's related to the mental health of school-aged children. A report from the U.S. Center of Disease Control Prevention viewed data from 47 states and hospitals. And the study tracked emergency room visits involving children age 18 or younger for mental health issues from January 1st to October 17th, 2020. And they saw a increase of visits, increased 24% for children age 5 to 11, and 31% among teenagers age 12 to 17, is where you have mental health issues that are driving students to go to emergency rooms for one reason or another. It's directly attributing this to the toll on children because of disruptions to their everyday life, anxiety, illness, and social isolation, which shutting schools down just will increase. This by shutting the school down, by taking this move now, you're ignoring one crisis to take up a different crisis. You're robbing Peter to pay Paul. It's not going to help the community. It's going to hurt many more students. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wolfrey.
Madam President, the next person, Mary Breslin King. Please give us your name and township of residence. Trying to get Mrs. King to unmute her. Oh, Mrs. King, you are unmuted.
Hi, yes, this is Mary King. I'm from South Coventry. And first off, I wanted to thank you for everything that the board has done so far, and especially with allowing fall sports, because it made a huge difference with my son. But I also wanted to put in my support for keeping students hybrid, especially since the cases in this particular OJR district have been low compared to such areas as Westchester and also Southern Chester County. My son is in high school and he does so much better in person, and I really worry about him falling behind in school. He really needs the personal interaction, the in-person teaching. So I just wanted to, again, put my support in if you can, just to think about keeping the hybrid model, since, like I said, the OGR cases are low. And also, if, there was mention about not keeping it in high school, but also please to keep it in all the schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. King.
Madam President, the next person is Ms. Denise Wilson.
Hi, Denise Wilson at East Coventry Township. I'm speaking on the agenda item of picking the CCIU to choose a new superintendent. Once again, an outgoing board will pick a new superintendent. This is at all what we heard about in 2017. Why are you not getting on an interim superintendent in July 2021 and let the board that gets elected in November 2021 pick the new superintendent? If we have to get a new superintendent, once again, let's get it started on the right foot. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Wilson.
Madam President, the next person is Dawn Sweeney. Dawn, please give your full name and township of residence.
Hi, my name is Dawn Sweeney. I am in Warwick Township. I have 2 kids at the high school and 1 at French Creek. And I'm urging all of you to vote to keep the kids in at least hybrid and even consider putting them in 5 days a week. And I'm wondering if you have data on what the health impact is on students and teachers who have gotten COVID. We keep looking at the cases, and especially over since August, since school is opened, we have cases and we panic and we quarantine for 14 days. But the teachers are home quarantining, students are home. No one's even going to the doctors because the doctors don't want them at their offices. They're not going to the hospitals. So I don't see what the health concern is with having a case of COVID. So I'm just wondering if the board, anyone on the board knows how many students and teachers in Chester County have been hospitalized. How many students and teachers in Chester County, our Owen J. Roberts School District, have died due to COVID. How many students in Pennsylvania have died from COVID? Are you basing your vote tonight on this type of data? Because a case doesn't appear to have much of an adverse impact on students or teachers. At least it hasn't since school has started in August. And quite frankly, it really hasn't in the entire 8 months of this epidemic. And I agree fully with what Mark said regarding mental health issues. Our students are suffering terribly. And if you get a chance to have a conversation with a student who's in high school or who's in middle school, they will, I'm a teacher, I'm a coach in Chester County. I talk to kids every day. They're suffering from depression, anxiety, they're using drugs, they're turning to alcohol, suicide attempts. I mean, they're far worse with the mental health issues than COVID on its worst day. So if you're basing your vote tonight on students' health and the health of teachers, really the mental health aspect of not being in school has affected our community far more than COVID has. And I really think those health issues need to be addressed. They're important, and our kids need to be in school 5 days a week. Twin Valley is a good example of that. They've been in school.
Time. Thank you, Mrs. Sweeney.
Madam President, the next person is Gary Walk. Mr. Walk, you are unmuted. Name and township of residence, please.
My name is Gary Walk, and I live in East Coventry Township. First off, Dr. Lloyd, I'd like to thank you for your service. School board, I know you have a difficult decision tonight regarding school staying virtual, being hybrid or whatever, and I don't envy your position. However, the metrics have been known for this entire time school has begun. Changing the metrics now is like saying that a kid who earned a 60 on a test can get an A because, well, we just want to change it. If you change it now, they win. If people have not been doing what they need to be doing and this COVID is spreading, then this is what needs to be done. I hate this for the children. I hate this for my children. But we've all known that this was going to be the result if it got to this point. And we are at this point now. That's all I have to say. Thank you and have a good night.
Thank you, Mr. Walk.
Madam President, the next person is Patty McPhie. Mrs. McPhie, you're unmuted. Just name and township of residence, please.
Hello there, Patty McPhie, North Coventry Township. First and foremost, I thank all of you for your service to this community and to our children. Dr. Lloyd, I am thrilled for you, but pretty devastated for our school. My oldest started kindergarten at North Coventry the same year that Dr. Lloyd started there. And I had the pleasure and honor to work with her on the board at North Coventry. Matter at hand, tonight's big vote, my son asked me to use my voice to advocate for him and his friends and his peers to continue live instruction, to continue to offer them the option to be able to be in person. They need it, definitely for their mental health. Thank you, Mark, for bringing that up. Gary, I appreciate all you do for our school district, but you can't put us in a square box and say, you knew the metrics and this is what we're doing. That's not how we deliver the best options for our children. They are growing, we are growing. We are learning every day. We're able to read information and drill down. We know there are 0 cases reported in our elementary schools. Concerns me a little bit that all the board members didn't realize that or didn't see the data. That kind of concerned me to hear. I emailed today as well with a lot more details, and I beseech you to truly read through your guiding principles. The health department is offering you guidance. It's guidance. Let's look at what we're doing. They offer guidance to, I don't know, 500,000 people. That's a lot of people. We are a very safe community. The sports went off without a hitch. Please consider it for our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. McPhie.
Madam President, just a clarification. I think the board members are familiar with the data. I'm not sure if that was a misstatement, but believe me, we're very familiar with the data.
Thanks, Mr. Deal.
Madam President, the next person is Tracy Raz. Tracy, you are unmuted. Please give us your full name and township of residence.
Thank you. My name is Tracy Rasmussen, and I live in South Coventry Township. And I would like to ask the board to be courageous as they make this decision this evening. I completely sympathize with people who are worried about the mental health of their children and are worried about sports. And I would say that, and worried about education. All 3 of those things, there are systems in place to help your children. So if your children are upset, anxious, depressed, get them some help and don't rely on the school to be able to do that for you. I would prefer that our school board follow the guidance of medical professionals because this is not August and this is not September. We are surrounded and infiltrated by COVID, and hospitalizations are up. There are statistics that suggest that if we do not do something, there will not be room in hospitals by the end of this year. And people who have things other than COVID aren't going to be able to get help either. And so while I agree that my daughter who is going into school would much prefer to be in school, I think she also would tell you that she wants to be a good community member. And when you've got fires all around you, do you wait until it gets into your house before you evacuate? And I think that's what you need to think about. You need to think about the community as a whole and how this affects the entire community and the resources that are available to them. There are tutors, there are mental health professionals, there's ways that kids can be social with one another. And we know that in fact they are doing that because again, this is not August, this is November, and we have dire catastrophic rates of COVID in this community. And I think that the school board should listen to health professionals before they listen to parents when it comes to something that affects the health of the entire community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Rasmussen.
The next person is Jolene. Jolene, please give us your full name and township of residence.
My name is Sydney Smith. I live in East Vincent Township and I am a high school student. I decided to speak tonight because many of the opinions that have been shared do not match my own opinion as a high school student. While it would be, ideal for students in high school to be in school, the entire world is not at its normal right now. And if it is necessary for us to be virtual for a shorter period of time so that we can be, in person sooner, I think that matches the statistics. We know that the country has, the highest number of cases in the world. And I think it's short-term versus long-term goals. Short-term, if we are, conquering the cases in our county and our state, we will be able to go live sooner. So as a high school student, that's my opinion. And I hope we stay cyber. I hope that is the decision that is made. And I know that my opinion matches many of my peers. Thank you.
I believe you said your last name was Smith. So thank you, Ms. Smith. I appreciate you calling in.
The next person is Jennifer MacMullen.
Hello, can you hear me now?
We can.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the time. I appreciate immensely. Words cannot even express my gratitude and thanks for the school board and for our teachers. I can't imagine the workload that they have. So my thanks and my heart goes out to everyone dealing with everything that we all have on our plates. I'm from East Coventry Township. I have a 4th grader and I have an 11th grader. They are struggling mentally every single day. They're suffering, they're struggling, and these are, I have 2 students who are, very good students. They excel, they have a love of learning. My 4th grader now cries every day because she can't be in school. And I urge you as a board, with the statistics and the information that you have before you, which I'm sure is a lot, to just make your decision based on doing the right thing. Because I agree with that. I would love for my kids to be able to go to school for their mental health, but we also want to be good community members, and we want to do what is best for the long-term goals, just like was just said. And if that means that we all have to stay home just a little longer so that we can really get a handle on things, because, for example, if we were to, close the high school and the middle school and keep elementary school open, each one of those students may be going home to, other people that they're being exposed to, and so on and so forth. As we know with COVID, it's not just one particular person. It's everybody that that person comes in contact with. So, you know, as it just continues to grow and grow and grow, if we don't do something to, I don't know, alleviate or help this whole war that we're fighting right now, we're going to be right back to where we started from. The cases are growing. I know that you guys all have the information that's needed to make the best decision possible. So as I'm, you know, a parent advocating for my kids, I'm also advocating for everyone's health and us as a community. So I just urge you to continue to do the valiant job that you're doing and make the right decision based on the information and the statistics that you have. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. MacMullen.
Madam President, the next person, Elizabeth. Elizabeth, full name and township of residence, please.
Hello, my name is Elizabeth Fallon, and I'm in North Coventry Township. Hello?
Yes.
I can hear you.
Okay. Thank you all for allowing us to speak tonight and for being here this evening. I just wanted to come on and maybe give a little bit of information, as I am a critical care nurse in a Chester County hospital system. Simply looking at numbers taken kind of out of context isn't a true representation of what is actually happening. Just recently in the hospitals, we had a big meeting with the infectious disease team that talked about patients who are coming in now asymptomatic when they've had COVID, they were previously COVID positive, are no longer being isolated. People are now, they're finding that they are testing positive over and over again for several months. So in our hospital alone, we have at least a half a dozen patients who are COVID positive, but are no longer being isolated. Therefore, you know, these tests, these numbers, these patients are being tested over and over and over again. And those numbers are just being counted into the general numbers that are being put out by the Chester County Department of Health. They're not quite an accurate representation of what is happening in our schools. And I just hope as a board that you're looking at contextually what is happening within our school system and how that may represent our schools being a place of transmission. We in the hospital, as staff members and nurses taking care of these patients, are wearing simple masks and face shields and practicing some social distancing and are fine. We are not having transmission from coworker to coworker. It is from outside of the hospital. Very much the same standards are being put in place in schools. If you have the masks, if you have some distancing, if you have maybe half the students, just looking at numbers being put out by one person doing simple statistics rather than looking at numbers contextually does not represent the rate of transmission happening within our schools. And I really hope you consider that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Vallon.
Madam President, next person, Desi Susmuth. You are
Hello.
unmuted. Hi.
Okay. My name is Deb Susmuth from North Coventry Township. First, I want to wish Dr. Lloyd the best as she moves into retirement. But I want to encourage the school board, if they have not done their due diligence by actually visiting the schools before making any decision, I would highly encourage you that, so you can see what things are going on, how well the schools have kept students safe and are meeting the standards. And I appreciate all the hard work that everybody is doing to continue to provide an education in these crazy times. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Susmuth.
Kristen Craig.
Hello.
Yes, you are unmuted. Just the full name and township of residence, please.
Hi, Kristen Craig from East Vincent Township. I would just like the board to consider what this experience has had on elementary school children. My one daughter, when she was entered into the virtual environment in September, unbeknownst to me and my husband, was failing. She was sitting by herself with a computer screen and sitting there by herself at 11 years old with her failure. We did finally recognize what was happening between the school and us, and we got her into school. And her grades have consistently been 100%. She went from feeling like a failure, isolated to herself with her parents not knowing, to feeling like a success. And our fear is that she is now being put back into the environment where she was failing, because she's an elementary school child. She does not have the maturity to self-advocate and articulate. All she can say to me is, I'm completely lost. In front of a computer screen does not adequately address their educational needs. The second part was that East Vincent brought in my son, who has similar educational challenges as my daughter, into first grade. He has only been there for 3 weeks. He barely knew his letters, he barely could write, and he definitely couldn't read. My son read me a book tonight. He's sitting right next to me, waiting to read his books again. He has no computer skills at all because he is 7 years old. He has no idea what a keyboard is, and he just learned his letters a few weeks ago. And both of his parents work. So then if we close down too, he then again is going back into an environment that he does not have the skills to even work in at all. So what does a parent like me do about that? Well, you get a tutor. We have a tutor, but that's once a week for a half hour. That does not complete 5 days a week of school. And I'm not even asking for 5 days a week. I understand that we have health concerns. I am a teacher, and I've actually been I teach in a kindergarten private school. I've been teaching since September. I feel safe. The children comply with all the safety measures that we have put in place. They wash their hands. We have to actually remind them to take mask breaks because they will keep the masks on. And we have had in our private school a 0 transmission rate. So I am just imploring to the board, please consider these young children who have, if you don't have any computer skills, how do you function in a virtual world, let alone learn something completely new to you by yourself? Don't understand how that's going to happen. So I'm just imploring the board to really think about the young children because they cannot function in an environment that's asking them
time. And Mrs. Prophet, we have time for one more speaker.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Craig. I think that's it for speakers.
Okay.
No, there's one more raised hand.
I think that was her.
Oh, okay.
I think it's a different one, Leslie.
It is a different one, Mrs.
Okay,
Prophet.
go for it.
Kristen, please give your full name and township of residence.
My name is Kristen Herman. I am a resident of East Coventry Township. My kids obviously attend East Coventry Elementary, and I have a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old. I'm not going to go into the same statistics that went into earlier with regard to the mental health issues with children. What I can say is, and I'm sorry that I forget her name, but she made mention that it is up to the parents outside of the school to obtain health assistance for their children. That is making the assumption that 40 million people were out of work in this country. You're making an assumption that people have the resources and the money to actually follow through and get help with their children outside of school. For some students and parents, the school is the only option they have with regard to health, mental health issues. So I would just, if I was the board, I do not envy in any way, shape, or form the decision that you have to make. But I need you to take into consideration not only the impact that it had on mental health for students, and yes, there's a pandemic, but there's an economic issue here that there's many parents that at this moment cannot afford to get mental health assistance for their kids outside of school. Not to mention there's a waiting list for children to get on even a virtual call with any type of mental health professional. So I would just request that you take that into consideration as well. Some students and some parents have no other option but for the school to assist them with the mental health. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Herman. All right, that's 45 minutes of public comment. So we're gonna get to the rest of the agenda. We are gonna discuss everything. So bear with us, and then there will be another option for public comment. So we're going to go into item 6, which is board committee reports. 6.1, committee of the whole. A meeting of the committee of the whole was held on November 9th, 2020 at 6 p.m. via Zoom. The following committees met at this time: Buildings and Grounds Committee, Curriculum and Instruction Committee, Pupil Services, and Special Education Committee. Item 6.2, Buildings and Grounds Committee, Mrs. Booth.
Thank you. Good evening and happy birthday, Madam President. While we are all occupied with these very serious issues in front of us, business does go on. Buildings and Grounds Committee update. A Buildings and Grounds Board Committee workshop is scheduled Wednesday, November 18th, 2020, 7 p.m., immediately following the Finance Committee workshop. Please join us. The Buildings and Grounds workshop agenda is posted on the district website. The district continues pursuit of the East Coventry Elementary Facilities update project closeout, which will guarantee acquisition of all warranties. Buildings and Grounds agenda items this evening under new business. Agenda item number 13.3, approval of naming committee recommendation as per policy 701.1, name the OJR training room in honor of Mr. Ronald C. Pearson as recommended by the Buildings and Grounds Committee from the Committee of the Whole meeting November 9th, 2020. Following the outpouring of support for this proposal, the board wishes to take action. Details will follow. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mrs. Booth. Item 6.3, Chester County Intermediate Unit, Mrs. Munson.
Yes, thank you. The CCIU last met on October 21st at 7 p.m. And during that meeting, they did discuss that they will be administering $15 million of aid from the CARES Act for Chester County schools and other organizations. This includes overseeing things like PPE distribution of reusable cloth masks. They also gave an update on other grants obtained and concerns over the budget in Pennsylvania, because there are some funds that run out at the end of the calendar year, and they need to ensure that the funds are there through the rest of the school year for certain programs. They also, as I alluded to earlier, appointed a new assistant director, Dr. Stephen Gerhard, and he was introduced. They also talked about some PSAs that they had done in cooperation with the Chester County Health Department. They put together some videos talking about going back to school and how school might be different and children might need to be wearing masks and distanced. And they have also been assisting with some mental health training for police officers, which I found very interesting. Their next meeting will be this Wednesday, November 18th at 7:30 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Munson. Item 6.4, which is Curriculum and Instruction Committee, Mrs. DiMarino.
Thank you, Mrs. Prophet. The Curriculum Committee met last week as a part of the Committee of the Whole. There were 2 agenda items. Mrs. Slade reviewed the changes to the high school program of studies. We have 2 new courses planned, and they are on the agenda tonight for consideration. As a part of the cyber blended update, Dr. Soder discussed current plans for assisting students who are struggling in the current instructional environment at the elementary, middle, and high school levels. Dr. Lloyd presented information about moving among virtual, blended, and cyber models based on the information given to us by the Chester County Health Department and the recommendations for each level. Updates to the health and safety plan is also part of our agenda tonight. The next curriculum committee meeting is scheduled for January 4th at 6 p.m. as part of committee of the whole. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Mrs. DiMarino. Item 6.5, Finance Committee, Mr. Friel.
Thank you and happy birthday, Leslie. Agendas 7.11 and 13.6. We're acknowledging receipt of the financial compliance report for this past year, and the closing of all the accounts. The only other report there, the finance members met with the accounting office for the audit, and we received a clean audit. So that's all good news. The only other agenda item for tonight is 13.10, which is an addendum to the food service contract. Just allows us to continue to serve breakfast and lunch as per PDE guidelines, as we do during the summer, during this COVID time while we're in this hybrid model. There's November 18th, our next Finance Committee meeting. And we are going to be talking about some of the energy saving projects there, and we'll be looking at the relocation of the district-wide service center and its financial implications. Also, since this has come up a bunch of times on the COVID funding and the grant funding received to date, we'll review that at that meeting with details for the year. Since I know we've had 9 meetings, but it's been sparsed out, some of this information. So we'll have a complete look at the COVID funding and the CARES Act stuff in that meeting as well. So tune in for the 18th. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Friel. Item 6.6, Legislative and Policy Committee, Dr. Malzak.
Good evening and happy birthday also. Remember, 30 is the new 20.
I'm going to keep telling myself that, but I don't feel it.
and also I'd like to express my congratulations to Dr. Lloyd. It's been a pleasure working with you, and good luck in everything you do afterwards. Regarding LMP, we have not met since the last board meeting, but we do have 2 items on the agenda under new business. Item 13.5 are policies that we are giving for a second reading and hope to pass by the full board. These policies include discussions about meetings, lesson plans, immunizations, and the use of school facilities. And then also under 13.8, we just are amending 2 policies, actually 1 policy regarding the organizational chart for our school district. Exciting stuff. And that's it. Oh, our next meeting will probably be after the holidays.
Thank you, Dr. Malzak. Item 6.7, Personnel Committee, Mrs. Stutzman.
Hello, everybody. The Personnel Committee has not met since the last board meeting outside of Executive Committee. And as always, we have a number of items to approve tonight, but they are all routine and nothing that required the committee meeting. No planned meetings in the near future as well. And that's it.
Thank you, Mrs. Stutzman. Item 6.8, which is Pupil Services and Special Education. So it's been a very busy month for Pupil Services. We've been actively working on defining what equity means for our school districts. At the Committee of the Whole meeting last week, Dr. Lloyd shared with the committee how our staff defined equity. And last week we started our listening sessions at the various schools. I have to say it's been really eye-opening to hear what can be or what has been a barrier for our students to receive an equitable education. I also have to say it's been inspiring to hear how hard our staff and our parents work to ensure our students are being treated fairly. We discussed at the CAL meeting how this is a work in progress and we are still at the first step. We have a lot of work to do, but it is great to hear so many ideas of how we can accomplish this work. If you have not been able to attend a listening session, feel free to email the board and Dr. Lloyd with your thoughts and ideas. We would love to hear from everyone. Also, as Dr. Lloyd mentioned, please keep in mind that our first virtual Stewards of Children presentation is this Thursday at 6 p.m. This is an incredibly informative session and I highly encourage everyone to tune in. If you're not able to attend this one, there will be a second session on December 15th at 6 p.m. and that concludes my report. Item 6.9, Technology and Communications Committee, Mrs. Munson.
Thank you, Madam President. Technology and Communications has not met since our last meeting. However, we did have the opportunity to interview another provider of surveys to school districts. And we're hoping to have at least one more, and probably will not have another meeting until we've decided that we've reviewed the full complement that's out there. Dr. Lloyd was, I think, still hoping to find one more. But I am also very much looking forward to hearing updates on the website, which should be launched in January. And no meeting is scheduled at this current time. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Munson. We're gonna move on to item 7, which is recommended routine matters. Let's see. I know we broke out. Which one was it? 7.12. Okay. So 7.1 is the motion to approve recommended routine matters, consent item 7.2 through 7.11. The board will make a motion to approve the following routine matters, which are items 7.2 through 7.11 as action consent items. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Deal, do I have a second?
Second. Doesn't matter.
Mrs. Booth, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. And then as Mr. Deal suggested last time, we've broken out 7.12, which was acknowledged receipt of donations, contributions, and gifts. So we're going to acknowledge receipt of donations, contributions, and gifts to the OJR School District as presented. So district-wide, the OJR Education Foundation offers Hope Campaign was donated $12,331,000 or $12,331. Sorry, got a little overzealous there. The campaign was established to provide assistance to the families in our district as a result of the various hardships so many are experiencing during the COVID-19 pandemic. The funds will be used to purchase 240 AT&T hotspots, resulting in internet access for 240 OJR families. That is amazing. Thank you so much to the OJR Ed Foundation. For the middle school, Walter and Kathleen Dietz donated $40 for magazine drive donation in lieu of purchase of magazines. So thank you as well. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Deal, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Friel, any discussion?
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. All right, item 8, approval of routine matters. 8.1, motion to approve routine matters 8.2 through 8.4. The board will make a motion to approve the following routine matters, which are items 8.2 through 8.4 as action consent items. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Deal, do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Mr. Friel, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. All right, item 9, board communication, Mrs. Crumrine.
Madam President, we have 2 board communications that I was copied on this month. One from Pat Savant and the other one from Melody Kemp. And they are both in support of naming the high school training room after Ron Pearson.
All right, thank you. Okay, item 10, board discussion. If you guys don't mind, I'm going to start with 2 items. So first is pretty brief, so I figured I'd do this first. I'm recommending that the LNP committee update the name of the committee of the whole meeting to work sessions. I feel like there's a lot of misconception around what this meeting is used for. I've looked at our neighboring districts and they refer to this as a working session. My hope is that this will lessen the confusion that we were actually voting on things. That meeting is strictly for more than one committee to get together to work. No definitive decisions are made out of those meetings. Anything that comes out of those meetings must go to the full board for approval. So I just wanted to tap into everyone else and see what your thoughts are.
I like that idea. I've been saying, just like the language we use on the website, and how can we be more, have more plain English and what everything is. I think it's a great idea.
I approve as well.
Agree as well.
I agree, and we'll work on it.
As a bonus, we get away from the awkward COW acronym.
Yes, the cow.
You don't like calling it the cow?
I like.
Oh yeah, the cow sounds fun, but it's
Yeah.
all right.
Only if we're doing cow tipping. I don't know.
Don't let the farmers.
Yeah, I've had bad experiences with cows myself.
Sure you have.
All right, so Dr. Malnazak, you're going to take that on an LNP?
Bet.
All right, sounds good. All right, so second item is the hot topic, 13.2, approval of K through 12 regular education students to return to virtual learning. So I think it's important for us to discuss this as a board. Dr. Lloyd presented the board with recommendations on Monday the 9th to return to virtual learning. On the 23rd, if Chester County's numbers were within the very high range for the next 3 weeks, per the recommendation from the Chester County Health Department. Over that past week, I have struggled with this concept that we would have to go virtual with no end in sight. I've learned of at least 3 other Chester County schools that will not be following this recommendation. I will also point out that in 2 separate articles, the Chester County Health Department publicly stated that they do not recommend going virtual. And then after speaking with our legal team, it was brought to my attention that there is a clause within the Chester County Health Department's recommendation, which we adopted, that states the above thresholds must be considered along with additional information, such as the number of cases in the school, evidence of transmission within the school, staffing levels, and adherence to preventative measures. As a district, we have had no transmission within our schools, and I'm going to knock on wood. Our students and staff have been properly following safety protocols. The cases in our district, the cases that our district has seen have been from outside sources, and the majority have been in our high school. We've only had 3 cases as of yesterday in our middle school. Dr. Lloyd and her team have been working almost daily with our health department to ensure the safety of everyone. Based on this information, I am suggesting that we as a board do not vote on going completely virtual. I'm recommending that we make a motion to continue our hybrid and cyber programs. And I think we need to evaluate whether or not we want to go virtual for following our Thanksgiving and Christmas breaks. The holidays are of concern to me just due to travel. I think it's within our best interest to keep the following 2 weeks virtual to allow for self-quarantine, but that's just my thought. I think we should all discuss. I believe I think shifting completely virtual would be a huge disservice to our students. They're not performing well with virtual. It's very clear. We have our own school data to support elementary, middle school staying in session. I will say my concern is the high school. That is where we've had our most individual cases and where we have the biggest staffing concerns. I do foresee, based off the information Dr. Lloyd has given us, that the high school will need to move to virtual sooner rather than later. I believe that we need to look at high school and elementary very differently. But I want to open this up to everyone. I know everyone really has an opinion on this, so I want to make sure that everyone gets to speak their opinion, and you've now all heard mine.
Leslie, can I just, I want to reiterate, I think we should separate the schools, and, we've been treating them as high school, middle school, elementary the same. And I think we should talk about these schools individually, meaning the elementary school as a whole individually, separate from high school, separate from middle school. So I think it makes sense because the data shows we have no transmission in the elementary schools. So I'd like us to continue, my opinion is continue with the elementary school as in-person learning under a current scenario. Middle school, I'm not really sure. We've had a couple cases there. The high school where we do have transmission, it makes perfect sense to your suggestion to do what did you say, 2 weeks around the holiday, and then evaluate where we are, right? I think we have to come back and start looking at it on a regular basis on should we go back after that. So if we get around the holiday and we stop for high school, and then in 2 weeks come back and reevaluate should we come back in person in high school or not, based on kind of where the community spread is. I also would be persuaded that the high school is more susceptible, more at risk, is we have different criteria for closing high school versus elementary school. So I'll throw that out there to the rest of the board to comment on.
Yeah, I think that definitely the schools do not have the same issues, but I also think that we need to consider the fact that, when we're talking about children, school-age children, even high schoolers, even if they contract COVID, have very, very good statistics for not having any kind of serious illness at all. And when we made the decision to talk about this in the summer, we talked about the fact that we're worried about transmission to teachers because students all have an option of whether or not to be virtual or not. This, every family can choose that. So we had to look at the fact that our students transmitting to teachers, and we have not seen that at all. So I think we need to remember that when we talk about our high schoolers. Also, I also think it needs to be understood that the high school students are at extreme risk of struggling with mental health problems. And I would hate to have the holiday season be started with putting kids out of school. In my personal life, I know a few families who have lost children to suicide, and the holiday times is that time when kids make those decisions a lot. And so I just think that would just be something that would be very disturbing to me. Now, like I said, I do understand that we're trying to protect our staff, but as long as we have not seen the students transmitting this to the staff, we still are allowing students to have a choice. I think we need to honor that choice. 7 cases amongst, I don't know how many students are in high school right now. Maybe it's 1,200. I can't remember exactly, are in the school right now, but that's not a lot of cases, and we have not seen teachers fall ill because of being with the students. Also, I think that we need to take into account the fact that our students have been amazingly compliant with all these rules that we've put at them, wearing masks, the hand washing, the sanitizing of all the desks and all these things. I mean, school does not look anything like it did a year ago today. And I think that we need to honor the fact that these students have come in willingly to follow these rules at great expense to our whole district and the way we run things, not just financial, but how much work has to be done, hours of work with the health and safety plan. I think that we need to remember that and honor that as we make this decision. And a lot of people have said all these things, so I won't reiterate everything, but finally, I just want to reiterate one thing that Leslie said, which is, the CDC guidance is not simply a chart with numbers on it. They do expect us to consider our own district's level of transmission in our school environment and our ability to comply with the health and safety plan. And we heard from that head nurse last week that she felt that our students were complying with that and they were doing all the things they were asked to do. So in my mind, I would not like to deviate from our hybrid plan in any way at this moment. If we saw lots of teachers becoming ill because of this being with our students, then I think we would reconsider then. That's just my view on it.
Look, I'm Paul, I think your suggestion to consider the schools individually is a wise one. Are you all getting feedback?
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit.
All right, why don't I just wait, see if something happens here. If somebody else wants to talk.
It's not bad though, John. We can hear you.
I can hear you okay.
Yeah, you're fine,
Yeah,
John.
I think you're fine.
See, if you were here, wouldn't be an issue. And now you're muted. And I can't. Sanfran.
Unmute him.
Thank you for the assist there, Leslie. I appreciate that. So here's, I think, Paul, your suggestion to look at schools individually is a wise one. I think that's what our health and safety plan calls from. But from my perspective, since October 12th, since last Friday, we've had 0 cases in our elementary schools. We had 2 or 3 in the middle school out of like 630 students. And Kathy, to answer your question, we have 1,011 children attending in person at the high school. We've had 7 cases. That's 0.7%. And I'm not even sure if any of those kids have come back yet. Not a single case in our schools was indicated as a result of spread in the schools, which means that even if we were virtual, like a lot of other high schools or a lot of other school districts had done through this point, those 7 cases would have still existed. They're not getting it from the school, which is an indication to me that all the safety measures that we put in place as part of our health and safety plan are working. 6 feet of distance, mandatory masks, cleaning procedures, lunch procedures, go down the line. Our staff, our students, as Kathy said, all working together to create an environment that arguably is safer than the home environment that we want to send these kids back to, because that's where the cases we've seen have come from. So if that was the case, what's the purpose of having a health and safety plan to begin with? So these are the scenarios that we planned for for which we put procedures in place to deal with them. The difference is that prior to current date, all we ever had were recommendations. We didn't have hard data from our own schools to weigh in the balance. Now that we have data from our schools and the data supports at this point the plan we put in place, I don't know why we would choose to abandon it. So from my standpoint, I cannot in good conscience vote to send these kids back to virtual, given the data that we've seen from our real world school environment. I do have a keeps me up at night concern about the mental health of these kids, especially our high schoolers, and the ramifications of sending them back to an environment where we know that many aren't going to be able to learn well, where they risk increasing isolation. They may be less supervised in terms of their own personal safety in the name of saving them from a virus that has not yet, and I pray it won't, be spreading as a result of attending school. Part of our plan was to create a cyber school for any family that was concerned about their child attending in-person classes. And I believe this is still an option for any family that so chooses because of their individual situation. But what about consideration for the families who want at least some in-person instruction for their children and who know the potential risks of this virus, but still decide that those risks are outweighed by the benefit of in-person instruction? You know, if the health officials at the state level and especially at the county level aren't prepared to step in and close the schools like they did in the spring because of the data that they themselves produce, and in fact, they publicly state that they, quote, have no plans to shift to all virtual classes and that they, quote, are not considering new orders at this time, then why in the world would I? I can't predict what's going to happen with staffing. And obviously, if too many teachers are sick and calling out sick, or they're quarantined to the point where we can't properly manage the classes in any given school, I understand that we're going to need to close to instruction. But from the perspective of my position as a school director, I will be a no vote on return to virtual for any of our students, unless and until the data coming from our schools change.
I would like to weigh in. I agree generally with Mr. Deal. I'm certain there are 9 varying opinions regarding this weighty decision, and I respect them all. We are all here with the best of intentions. As much as I do not like to go against administrative recommendations, I must voice my opposition to rescind our successful hybrid program. I can't imagine anyone not agreeing with the value of in-person learning as opposed to this virtual experience. We have seen results in data. Some students will excel in either format. Many do not. Not only is there a lack of educational growth, there is an actual measurable loss in acuity in the most vital of all educational cohorts, reading. In last week's discussion, it was estimated perhaps up to 40% of our students are slipping behind. The education of thousands of students and total disruption of thousands of our constituents lies with us. We are verging on the point of no return. I do not believe all will prove to be recoverable. This generation of scholars will bear these scars going forward. I cannot in good conscience deny our scholars access to the most effective method of education. Parents were afforded options, cyber, virtual, or hybrid. Our administrative team constructed a highly successful hybrid program, providing all the required health and safety protocols. Special education and K-6 schools are not COVID-19 super spreaders. Middle and high school students are the most vulnerable to social emotional stress from lack of peer contact and in-person learning opportunity and counseling. I will and cannot, in good conscience, send these students home to learn in a virtual world. Thank you.
I'll add my 2 cents. I pretty much agree with everything said. I have a few additional data points for us to just consider. Not suggesting I want to do something drastically different than what we're discussing, but it is what I worry about is the community spread, and the numbers of kids spreading in the community has been increasing tremendously. My stepfather just went to the emergency room last week for something non-COVID related, and laid in the emergency room for 2 full days because they didn't have enough rooms. So it's a real thing. I know the Chester County Hospital, I know we heard from somebody there, but I think they're almost full. It's not a myth. It's a real thing, the community spread issue. That said, I too am very concerned about the reading numbers that we've been seeing, and especially in elementary. I am very concerned about the mental well-being of our students, especially in middle and high school. I have firsthand experience with that as well. And it's worrying. It's worrying as a parent, it's worrying as a member of this community for all the kids in our school. And frankly, I feel like we have a no-win situation here. No matter what decision we make, it's a bad decision because nothing is a win across the board. And it's a hard one. I do also believe that we should consider the elementary school a little bit differently than the middle school and high school. I feel like we are seeing that we're just not seeing the positivity there as far as COVID cases are concerned, and their reading is suffering. They really do need that in person. So if we can continue the hybrid option for the parents that would like to do that, I do think that's a great idea. As far as the high school and middle school and the recommendation to go virtual, I'm wondering if, I know CHOP also put out their information and recommendations, and they are basing it on the increase in cases and the lack of beds in hospitals, that schools go into a virtual stance for the week before Thanksgiving and then the week after, with the hope that bridge over the holidays is enough to then get everybody back into school in December, and then do the same thing over the end of December holidays. I'm not sure if that's a viable solution for us, but something to consider, or the 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, as Leslie, you mentioned, I believe, in your comments. Definitely something I think worth considering. And that's it. Only because I really do feel like I'm worried about the impacts of, and to your point, John, sorry, about the teachers, that I think is a real concern as well. And I think we're gonna have to face it anyway, to be frank. So it's something that I think might be worth taking the proactive steps for the high school and middle school.
Do we know that Susan, do you know from a staffing at the high school point of view, how much of this is, if we said, let's just stay the course, where's our staffing at the high school? Is that the challenge, and where are we at with that? And what do you feel, putting the kid issue aside for a second, can you just tell us a little bit, give us an update on staffing at the high school?
Well, it varies from day to day on the staffing. Currently, we have 7 teachers quarantined at the high school and 82 students quarantined at the high school. So it's varying. We have 5 substitute teachers available to us most days at the high school, but we are most days having teachers that don't have substitute, and that varies. That can be 5 teachers up to 15 teachers with no substitute coverage for them.
And Susan, we don't report on or have the numbers for students that are attending school virtually, correct?
No, we don't track those. Those parents aren't required to report.
So they're not.
We have numbers, but they're not required to report to us unless they can't attend virtually.
Right.
I guess it's my turn. Well, obviously, I agree with everything that's been said. I don't think anybody on this board disagrees with the thought that students do a lot better in school than they do at home. Having said that, I just want to make a couple points. Back in the summer, we all said to ourselves, we're not experts, so let's follow the experts. So we made, we put in the plan that we would we would incorporate, I guess, the suggestions of the various medical professions around us. It's kind of easy to follow the recommendations when we agree with them. It gets a little harder to follow the recommendations when they go against what we really want in our heart. It's true, we have not been mandated to be shut down, but that's only because the politicians don't have the guts to make the decision. They're not going to go through that fire at this point. But Montgomery County has closed schools. Philadelphia, Chester County is recommending virtual. CHOP has recommended virtual for students also. So we're not going to be following the recommendations or the guidance of professionals if we totally abandon what we have been, striving for with the plan before. Additionally, I do worry about the staff. Teachers have not, been gotten sick and, yet. So it's great that we do have a great plan to keep the infection out, to mitigate it. But 250,000 people in the country have died. Every state just about is increasing with COVID. Beds are in short supply. So it's even if we're doing well in our school, it's going to come eventually and affect us. I was reading the report from the Children's Hospital Association. They estimated that there were about 1 million students under the age of 18 who have been infected with COVID since this began. But last week, there were 100,000 kids. That is a huge increase in the percentage of children getting infected. So yes, we are doing great in our community, but if the woods is burning around you, your house is going to eventually burn down too. Now, I do agree with the fact that elementary kids are doing a lot better. There are studies which show that kids under the age of 10 are less likely to get the virus and less likely to transmit the virus. So I've seen that there's a very, very small percentage of elementary kids getting it. But kids over the age of 10, their infection rates and transmission rates are the same as adults. So that is a huge concern for me. So I agree that at this point, keeping the elementary kids going to school is a safe thing for the moment. So I would advocate that we do keep in-person learning for them. But since we had these recommendations we said we were going to follow, and we knew these numbers were going to come eventually, I really do think we need to follow the experts' advice, at least with like middle school and the high school. So for starting next week, maybe for 2 weeks, again, because Thanksgiving is here, we can have the middle school and high school students go virtually, just like it was after July 4th, just like it was after Labor Day. It's invariably going to be a bigger spike after Thanksgiving. Keeping these kids at home will mitigate the possibility of spread in our schools. So yay for keeping elementary kids going, but my real concern is kids over 10, and my real concern also is that our staff has not been infected yet. That's great, but that doesn't mean it's not going to happen. So that's my 5 cents, I guess.
Which that's similar to what Leslie proposed, right? Leslie, you had proposed sort of a 2 weeks around the holidays.
I'm also proposing we look at this week by week. I think, we can always call a special school board meeting if we feel like, we're starting to see, numbers rise where if we have transmission within the school, we've got a whole protocol for that. So I think we can always call a special school board meeting if we feel like we need to reevaluate this. I know that Mr. DeForest Munson didn't get a chance to speak yet, so I want to make sure you both do.
Yeah, I would say that I'm not really in favor of just leaving it hanging and the community needing to, wait for us to call a special school board to find out what's going to happen next. I do like having clear, thresholds that we follow. And while I do agree with everybody else that the evidence does seem that it is less risky to keep the elementary schools open than the middle school and high school, and we, could make some tweaks to our plan on that. I don't see any value in trashing what we've already put together in terms of the thresholds and plans to go virtual or stay hybrid. It seems to me that we were going into the transmission very high for county and high for OJR at this point. Dr. Lloyd, was that the most recent one that was sent out?
Yes.
Yes. And, so the scenario for that is supposed to be 9 to 12 regular education, K to 8, 9 to 12 virtual, K to 8 blended. As far as what's on the website right now. And it does seem to me that the majority of board members seemed to be expressing some sort of view that was in alignment with that. So I think we should tweak whatever we need to on these scenarios and give everyone, including the administration and staff and students, a way to expect what is going to happen next. So, if we do stay in very high transmission for county and very high for OJR, then if we're not using these numbers, if we want to change ours away from the Chester County numbers, I just still think that we need some sort of a way of saying exactly at what point would we go all virtual, including the elementaries. And that I think it's better to determine that ahead of time than just make it up as we go along. Also, somebody had mentioned, she questioned whether we knew how many total deaths there were in Chester County since the beginning of the pandemic. So I looked it up. There have been, as of June, Chester County hit the 300 mark. The good news is that we have not yet hit 400 since then. So the rate of deaths slowed. So the majority of those were between March and June, but it's not just an illusion that this is causing deaths. It is causing deaths, and in Chester County. So we do need to be careful. But I've got kids that are, also doing better when they're in school consistently. Although I have one she's an odd duck. She says she would actually, she doesn't like the 2 days a week. She doesn't think it's enough days in school. So she's actually considering going all cyber because of that. But I don't think she's in the majority. I think the majority of students her age would rather see their kid or their friends 2 days if they can't see them more than that, But I'm very interested in making sure that whatever we come up with, whatever the plan is, that we can communicate it clearly so the community knows.
I guess I'm last.
Sorry. You gotta speak up louder.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Yeah, I guess I'm last. I'm trying to, I have so many different minds. I have my school board mind, my parental mind, and then I have my IT mind. So you guys have to excuse me because I've written 2.5 pages of notes, and really how I feel about it is I think we've been successful so far. Our plan and what we've done and the actions that we've taken have been preventative as well as conditional, right? I think Chester County looks at it as broadly, they want everyone to follow the recommendation because it's our contribution to society as a whole. However, what we do to prevent the virus spreading in our school is our contribution, right? That is our contribution to society by preventing it happening in school, even though we've had some cases. Now, as a parent, I'm very concerned with the mental state of our students. I think some kids suffer in silence. I'm also very concerned about that. The holidays, it's a very stressful time for both parents and students. I do 100% agree that we probably should separate middle school and high school from elementary school, right? As well as IEP and GIEP. I think elementary school, IEP and GIP should remain in school, right? And we would only take action based upon the conditions that we have already set forth. I think we had a balance between preventing the virus and the mental state and the educational state of our students. But at this point, I think it's kind of leaning the other way towards the mental state and the educational state of our students. I was very sad to hear, the degradation of our grades at our school. And I think our kids who really want to do well are suffering, but people are suffering for other reasons as well. My concern about education is once you start to get behind, it's terribly hard to catch up. We've said a lot. I think the risk is a higher risk during the holidays. But I think that what we do currently has been successful and we should stay the course and be successful at it. I think that's all I had.
All right, so we've got to move somewhere from here. So from what I've heard from everyone is that we are, and so let's look at this from different grade levels. So let's look at the elementary first. So what I've heard is that everyone is in agreement that elementary should continue on. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
So-
but I do think we should define when, like what the threshold would be for saying, no, we need to make them go virtual.
So Dr. Lloyd, can I get your opinion as well for elementary?
So if we consider the information from Chester County, so I put it up on your screen there so that you could see the chart. And so under the chart, it says the above threshold serve as the guidance. All right, well, we've blown this out of the water. We're beyond that right now. And then it goes on to say guidance for instructional models and must be considered along with additional information such as the number of COVID cases and or outbreaks in schools, evidence of transmission within schools, and staffing levels. Adherence to preventive measures, which we know we're doing extremely well with the preventive measures. So what I hear, the school districts that are looking to stay the course, to quote Mr. DeFore there, is that they're looking at this transmission within schools and staffing levels, and they're looking at it one school at a time, and making decisions by one school or one grade level, depending on where the impact is there. So, which goes back to what we originally thought we were going to have to do way back when we were crafting our health and safety plan before we had a lot of guidance. We anticipated that we were going to be closing schools based on positive cases. Turns out we don't do that. We instead quarantine. So I guess the best course of action would be to close schools based on transmission levels or staffing level or staffing levels, because it's possible I wouldn't be able to staff a school. So
from what I understand from what you're saying is that you believe that, at least because we're just talking about elementary at the moment, for elementary, you're saying the additional data we should be looking at is whether or not it's transmitting within the schools and whether or not we have the staff to support those schools.
And we know if it's transmitting in the school because we do the contact tracing. That's how we know that there's no transmission in our schools, because our nurses and principals are the ones that are doing the contact tracing. It goes off to Chester County, but we know first. And we actually issue the order to quarantine on behalf of the health department. So if you're looking for elementary, it sounds like you're saying stay the course. Mm-hmm. And then only if we have these other factors would we assign a school to be virtual at that point.
I mean, that's what I think makes sense based on what I'm hearing from everybody. And Jennifer, I hear your point, but I think we are following the guidelines as we look at this, because we know we're in very high and we blew that out of the water, but it's a guideline. And it says, now consider these other factors. What's happening in school? What are the staffing levels, adherence? And it feels like, at least for the elementary schools, that there's consensus to move forward and, stay the course, to quote several members here. So I don't know if we can break down the votes that way, Leslie, and make a motion to stay the course for the elementary school and separate it from the middle school, high school. If that makes sense, that way we can, make progress, in the path here.
Paul S. John Diel needs to be unmuted, please.
And Fran.
Got it. Thank you. I just have a question. Why would that criteria vary school by school? Why wouldn't you look at evidence of school transmission and staffing levels in any of the schools, not just elementary school?
Well, we're just speaking because we said we want to separate out everyone. We can definitely do this for the other schools. I'm just looking at elementary first right now.
But I think you're right, John. I mean, my point was, I think we are following the criteria. I don't think we're not following the criteria. I believe we are. We're just, I think maybe we had in our heads, like the numbers would just tell us, and it'd be a black or white issue. And it just hasn't evolved that way. And as I read this, I just feel like we are, and let's just consider it, school by the same criteria, but school by school is what I'm proposing.
All right. So essentially it sounds like that's what we're looking at for all three schools, but for elementary, do we want to consider going virtual around the holidays?
I don't.
I don't either.
To keep elementary as is. Okay. So Bryan, I'm thinking, well, I need to make these into 3 separate motions once we get to 13.2.
Yeah, I think that based on the discussion, I would make it at least at a motion regarding elementary schools, K-5, and then you can.
No, we're 6.
I'm sorry, K-6, and then do middle school and high school together, or you can break them out in 3 different.
Okay. All right. So then let's get to middle school. Middle school, I think we discussed we would look at transmission and staffing levels for the middle school. Do we want to consider anything else? Do we want to consider going virtual around the holidays? What's everyone's thoughts?
Seems
I
like
think
we
we
still
should,
don't have transmission even in the middle school.
Yes.
So, yeah, go ahead, John.
Oh, yeah, I mean, again, you know, kids under 10 are not as, you know, as dangerous, I guess, as kids 10 and above. So at this point, I think we should, you know, let them go virtual around the holidays at least. We've hit the threshold which we thought we would, you know, adhere to. The holidays are coming. Things got bad after July 4th, after Labor Day. So let's be cautious. We're doing a great job, but you know, breaks do happen, and again, everything around us is burning down. So we have to just, you know, be extra careful and like I said, you know, at least follow the guidelines for middle school and high school.
I feel like we listened to recommendations around Labor Day, and I think we lost a month of schooling. And I do believe that once you send the kids back to virtual, when are you going to decide to bring them back? You'll lose the evidence that we found so far in the school that our plan is working. Let's say cases increase by the middle of January. We'll have no idea what that would have done in the in-school population. We already called the game. And at what point do we argue that it's quote unquote safe to bring them back? I think once they're out till you get distribution of a vaccine.
I think the suggestion on the table though was to make a decision to go virtual for a 2-week period, bring back, and then go virtual over the other holiday. Not necessarily always based on numbers.
Personally, I'd vote against it until the evidence in the school says we should, but I know I'm one vote.
Well, I also think we need to consider that when we did make that decision in the summer, we were making that decision with no one in school, and the cases rose in the community, right? Well, now the cases are rising like crazy in the community. We can't deny that, but most of the schools in our county have not even been in session for long enough for it to be attributable to the schools. And we have seen in our own data that has not been attributed to our schools. So it seems to me that to take the children out of school when they are not responsible for what's going on in the community and not contributing to the rise in the community seems counterintuitive to me. I agree with Lydia that, you know, this is a real thing. People are sick. I get that. I do not deny that at all. And some people are very ill, but we also can see that these illnesses went on without any contribution from our students. So I just don't feel that we can control that. And we are not seeing in-school transmission, which is part of the Chester County Health Department's guidance. So I don't necessarily see the justification, especially with the caveat that these students are suffering immensely without having peer interaction. It's just devastating to kids, and kids that feel comfortable without being in school and don't have that need are already choosing to be virtual. So that's how I feel about it. I really do not think that we should be putting kids in virtual instruction because, you know, we have kids that are barely attending that now, do it virtually. You heard the principal speak. They don't put their camera on. They don't have their microphone on. They're not even participating as it is now. I just don't see why we want to double down on that.
Well, so I mean, just to chime into John's point, I think follow up on what Lydia said, you know, the proposal's 2 weeks around the holiday, and every prediction that came out of CHOP and the health department around the other holidays, July 4th and the Labor Day, came true. You know, it raised the rates. And what they're saying is we're going to have more community spread, and then we have potential for us to introduce it into the school and to staff, and high school kids are more likely. I think that's a reasonable assumption, is what they're saying. The other thing I think why I'm leaning towards the 2-week virtual around the holiday of Thanksgiving is, one, it's a couple half days. 2, we'll actually then get data after the holiday and be able to see this. So before I would say we make any other decisions on Christmas and New Year's and that kind of stuff, we'll actually see what happens with the community and with our school district around the Thanksgiving holiday. And we do have those college kids coming home, which we know are a risk. You know, I know both of my kids went to college where they had high transmission rates. My son got COVID. So, you know, I see it not as necessarily it's a high risk of the students being super harmed by the COVID if they get it, but as a vector to transmission to further exacerbate an already bad problem. And to Cliff's point, you know, our role to like stop community spread, or at least not be a factor in exacerbating the situation, because if we do exacerbate it, it's just going to be worse for kids if they come in and then shut us down. So I think in sort of that balance of what's in our long-term best interest to keep the kids in school the longest, you know, I'm okay with a 2-week around Thanksgiving only and see where their numbers go.
So are you saying, Paul, that they automatically come back in 2 weeks regardless of what the case counts are in the community?
Yeah.
Or do we take another vote?
Well, I think the way I heard the proposal was just do the 2 weeks. And then what I would say, they're coming back automatically unless we would take an affirmative vote to not let that happen. So John, my thought would be, we say, take the 2 weeks, we see what happens, they're coming back to school. And then if something tells us don't do that, I guess we could call a board meeting and say, hey, we shouldn't do that for some reason. My other question though, and this is another question I had, if we're going to go to virtual for these half days, does it even make sense to do it? Like, should we just give them the week off and not, you know, not try to do half day virtual there and say, just take Thanksgiving, a couple days off there, take the week, take a mental break, and then potentially add, I don't know what that does if there's days that we can make up on the calendar.
Yeah,
but that's another
yeah. I would prefer to put those days after Thanksgiving and not before them.
Well, yeah. I'm sorry.
Right.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
After and not before Thanksgiving, right?
Yes, correct. Yes.
That's our concern. I think Paul had a good question. This is all about reduction of risk, right? A lot of this is about reduction of risk, right? Because if we were in condition, we needed to close the school or quarantine, we would just do it, right? Mm-hmm. So it's about reduction of risk. Now, we were successful in, you know, having kids out of school the last time for Labor Day when we spiked. That was successful. We were out of school, we came back, and everything was fine. But so that's my main concern. It's a risk factor, right? We haven't hit worst case scenario, and to me, worst case scenario is a massive outbreak in school, right? We haven't hit that yet. And my concern is, are we at greater risk?
Yeah. Right. So my perspective, though, is that a preventative shutdown to reduce risk is actually a logical fallacy, because if we're saying that we can stay the course and keep our schools open because our measures are effective at preventing transmission during school hours, then having kids out of school is not going to reduce risk. It's going to increase it.
I agree with your point, Jennifer.
Yep.
It's contrary to popular thinking, but who says sending these kids back home is going to reduce the rates of infection amongst those kids that would normally be in school supervised 6 feet apart wearing PPE?
Right. We can't rationalize it both ways. We can't rationalize it to say, oh, this week because we want to have elementary in, well, the measures are effective this week, but next week because we think it's a holiday and everybody should just have a break well, then our measures are not effective. You know, like it doesn't work that way.
I'm not saying that, just for the record. I'm reading the staff recommendations which is saying, so taking all the expert data into consideration, that they're saying, even if you're doing well, they're basically asking schools to please shut down for 2 weeks because of the community spread and what they're expecting and what they're seeing. CHOP hasn't been wrong yet, so that's why I feel like it's a good recommendation.
But why do we believe that it will be effective if we're already effective at preventing transmission within school?
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, you know, if they go home and there's a spike in the community, then they're more likely to, then they will bring it to the school. So it's not so much send them home to protect them. It's, you know, not bringing them in to the school.
That's why I'm saying a preventative doesn't make any sense.
Right.
We should not be shutting down as a preventative next week. We should only be shutting down after the community spread reaches levels that we believe are unhealthy and too risky.
Well,
and if that's not,
I think we're there though.
Yeah, we are there.
You know, we've hit that high threshold, you know, 2 weeks in a row. So
and you have a Thanksgiving holiday where you have a bunch of people gathering and students, and they've been right into predictions each time. So what the experts and what CHOP is saying, and I'm not saying
we get what you're saying.
what we should
Let's
do.
just vote on it.
They're
I
saying
agree with you.
a higher
Well, we
risk.
have to have something to vote on, so let's
just vote.
decide what we're motioning.
Yeah,
let's
but
do
the point is there's higher risk if you have kids go home, get it over Thanksgiving, and then bring it back to school. The gap is to say, if that happens, we have the 2 week gap or whatever to hopefully those are identified before they come back and become a potential vector for spread. That's perfectly, I think, reasonable assertion. Whether we agree that we have enough protections in place to mitigate that or not, it's a separate issue. But we can vote on that. But to Leslie, to your point, I would still say we should vote on it on a by school basis.
Okay, so I'm trying to craft the middle school what that motion would look like. So that's all I'm asking for here.
Did we do the elementary yet?
So elementary, I have.
Let's do that one right now. That's the easy one.
That's Can't do it right now. It's not wait a minute. We're not there yet.
Can
we do a motion now?
We didn't do a motion on the 13.1 or whatever yet, though. We're skipping.
Right.
Well, we didn't even get there. We're still in board discussion. I'm still trying to
you're
figure
just
out what our
you want to
motions are,
craft
guys.
no
Why don't you
voting. You want to craft
get to
it.
the agenda item and let somebody make a motion and vote on it.
All right, so middle school motion is going to be, so elementary is stay the course. Susan, I want to hear your thoughts on middle school. We didn't get to you yet.
I just would like to remind the board that we need those 2 days in Thanksgiving, whether they are virtual or whether they're in person. We need to keep those so that we get our number of hours, a required number of hours in for the year. They can be virtual, but we have to keep those. We have to keep those hours because those are parent-teacher conferences, and so whatever you decide, we can't all of us just give everybody off that week.
Right.
So if you're going to do the same for middle school, stay the course. That's the school where right now we have 22 students quarantined and three teachers quarantined at that particular school. So a little bit more of an incident rate, but not drastically more than the elementaries at this time. It's also been related to siblings. So they have a high school sibling. There's a connection there.
Okay.
Or we also have not had a staffing issue at the middle school level.
Okay, so the motion would be to stay the course, I guess.
That would be my motion. You put it up for a vote. If it fails, it fails.
Yep.
And then we would go back to reevaluate it.
Then someone else would make another motion.
Bryan?
I think that the motion would be to remain in the current hybrid instructional mode.
All right, I'm just gonna rewrite these real quick. All right. High school.
I think the same, wait for a motion. If it fails, then go for another motion.
Yeah, but I may make the motion to go virtual for 2 weeks after Thanksgiving. So which motion do we want to do?
Why don't we do that one
Whoever
first?
motions first.
Oh, it's a draw.
Okay. Do we got buzzers?
Why don't we do to John's motion? Why don't you motion to go and 2 weeks after Thanksgiving to be virtual? And then that would be the entire motion. And then what would happen, I guess, we'd have to then evaluate if if we saw something that scared us, we'd have to get a board meeting together again to do something for Christmas, or are we just going to isolate it around?
So we will have a board meeting December 7th. There's not really anything on the agenda, but doesn't mean to say we can't add.
Yeah.
So then 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, John's motion would be fine. And if it doesn't carry, we can do
I
both.
do have a question though. If we were to take a break for 2 weeks, how are we going to evaluate it? Because they're not going to be in school. We won't have any data.
No one's saying to evaluate if you're taking a break. And everyone is just saying to take 2 weeks off for virtual.
Virtual.
Yeah, right. I know, but that's what I was asking. How are we going to have any data to know if there's a
You won't.
rate?
You won't.
Exactly.
I think the assumption is that we would go back. And I think what Paul's saying is unless there's something like let's say every single county in the state of Pennsylvania decides to shut down because it's so bad, then we would have to take that in consideration. But I'm going in with the assumption that they would just come back in 2 weeks. And that's how we should motion it and leave it at that. And then if the motion doesn't pass, then someone else would be able to make an emotion, I guess, to go stay the course, and then we would vote on that.
That's correct. And I do agree with you, Melissa.
I agree too. Not going to have school data. And I don't think that's what the intent was. It was to, I don't know. I don't want to speak for Paul. You tell us.
No, we're not going to have school data. We'll just know if there's a giant spike in big community issues. That's all.
But the intention would be that we just come back.
2 weeks, come back, and that's just the entire motion.
I'm still wondering what a giant spike in community transmission too high to have school open looks like if we haven't hit it yet.
Well, we have hit it according to recommendation, so we don't know what that is. Say we would have to look at that, and if something is scary enough for us to say, then we would call that meeting and have that vote. But otherwise, we would stay the course and have kids go back to school in 2 weeks.
That's what I'm interested in understanding. What is scary enough for us to reconvene? Why do we have to wait until we're scared? Why can't we make a data, point?
Well, we already did, but we don't like it, so we're trying to find that medium.
Yeah. No, we have data now that we didn't have.
I would agree with John. I think we have data now that we didn't have before.
Mm-hmm.
So can we define,
what number of transmissions in school?
Community
transmission
in school,
so the
number of cases.
Right, community transmission in school. Okay, so it seems like we all agree on that. But what about the transmission outside of school? Is there some other number that we should be looking at, like the hospital beds number or anything that would be the trigger to scare us?
Well, I think we could just also, listen to CHOP too. If they're not putting out any more bulletins, then, we'll go back to school as planned. If CHOP is saying something, if the health department gets a little more, kahungas, then we will we'll reassess things. But again,
pray they would do their job.
I know
they would.
Seriously.
But that's not going to happen at least tonight. So,
but they're two separate issues and motions. I mean, your motion is 2 weeks off, come back.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. 2 weeks off, come back. and then that's it.
That's it.
That's it.
That's
That's the motion.
Yeah.
Can I just get clarification on the dates that you're talking about? Are you talking about November 23rd through December 4th? So November 23rd is the week of Thanksgiving, and then the week after Thanksgiving?
I would go the following week. That way it would be 2 weeks after Thanksgiving.
The 30th through the 11th. The week of the 30th and week of the 7th. Is that what you're saying, John?
Yes, yes.
So they will come back on the 14th?
Yes.
And then what? Are we going to pull them out again at Christmas?
Yeah, I guess.
When do they go out anyway for Christmas?
Yeah, I mean,
the 21st.
So they would be back for a week.
Well, at that time, we'll
I
have
told you
other
there's no win.
Yeah, and then we have New Year's right after that.
Don't forget Christmas.
Oh, I said Christmas, and then after Christmas is New.
And then we have Easter.
So right, so really,
We're not looking out to Easter.
they're coming back for a week.
So it's all going to be
They'll
better.
come back for a week and then go out again, and then come back for a week and go out again.
So just to throw out, so what was it, Montgomery County, they are doing virtual from, and this Montgomery County Health Department, they are doing virtual from November 23rd until December 4th, so that it covers the week of Thanksgiving and the week after.
And that aligns with CHOP's recommendations. And frankly, it's only 2 half days next week. And then, so it'd be a week of virtual, really, at the end of the day.
That sounds more reasonable, I think.
So the kids will be coming back
I'll
in
go with that.
for 2 weeks, and then, sorry, Dr. Lloyd, I don't have the school calendar in front of me.
So that
They
would
are
be
in
the
school
23rd.
the 21st, 22nd, and 23rd.
Are you talking about Thanksgiving, Mrs. Prophet?
No, in December.
The 24th.
There, so
Oh,
the
December
24th is the day
24th.
they
Yeah.
are.
It says district closed, 24th, 25th.
Yeah, they would be back in school for 2.5 weeks if we went with the week of Thanksgiving and the week after Thanksgiving. Then they would come back for the week of the 7th, the week of the 14th, and most of the 21st, and just be out that Thursday and Friday.
Right, but I thought we said that we wouldn't see the effect until 2 weeks after a holiday. Did I get that wrong?
That's what they told us at Labor Day.
Right, that's what they told us at Labor Day, right?
And they forced
So-
us to 3 weeks.
But current recommendations from CHOP is the week before and the week after due to the community spread crisis.
Mhm.
So I'm with you guys. I'm just taking the best guidance
No,
that
you're
we
right.
have
I mean,
available to us.
Right, because I think Chester County said 2 weeks after, and I think CHOP says what you're reading there, obviously.
November 23rd puts you at the third week of third consecutive week of very high transmission. November 30th puts you at the 4 consecutive weeks of very high transmission, if you were looking to adhere to that guidance.
All right, so I'm leaving the high school up to all of you. You can make a motion for that. How about that? I've got the motion for the elementary and the middle school.
Well, Lydia, what do you think? The 23rd or the 30th start? I know CHOP says the 23rd.
Yeah. So again, I'm not the expert. I would think based on what we've heard in the past, it should be the 30th through, the 2 weeks after, like you just said, Cliff, it's 2 weeks after. So that would make more sense to me. But again, CHOP's latest recommendations was the week before and the week after. I don't fully understand that, but that's the recommendation. The good news about going with that is then they get 2.5 weeks back in school. So it doesn't feel pointless to just bring it back for a week and a half. If we go with the 2 weeks after. So it's kind of like the best happy medium that I feel like we might be able to come with. That's a long answer to your question of the week before and the week after.
So I'm sorry, what did you say? What did you decide?
The week
Who's
of
on
the 23rd,
first?
The week of the 23rd and the week of the 30th is what the CHOP recommendations are.
Okay, all right,
So if you would like to go with those, that's what that would be.
okay.
Dr. Lloyd, when we had spoken last week, we talked about how we might not have the staffing in the high school to make it past the 23rd. Is that correct?
Correct. We might have staffing problems across the district the week starting the 30th of November because of Montgomery County being closed down and so many of our teachers living in Montgomery County.
Well, if that's the case, then this is a moot point.
So
childcare issues driving that? Is that what we're thinking?
yes, that's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm thinking would be driving that. And remember that there's Family Cares Act leave available for employees to be able to do that. So if you were going to go with the 23rd to December 4th, that would align with when Montgomery County is closed.
Oh, okay. So it's going with CHOP recommendations and it aligns with Montgomery County's, what Montgomery County is doing.
Correct.
Okay. Again, I'm not quite sure why they're doing that, but you know, I'd go with that just to be consistent with our surrounding communities.
Well, I do understand Great Valley voted tonight to maintain their hybrid program without any service breaks. I'm curious as to how they're doing.
They're not in the very high range, that's why.
Okay.
Can we move on with voting on something?
Well, we're
Move down
still
the
in board
agenda.
discussion, John.
Make a motion to
Come on.
move on.
All right, any more board
Let's move.
discussion?
No.
No,
please.
all right.
Please no.
Item
How's it feel to
11.
be 30, Leslie?
John's getting cranky. We're making it past his bed.
John is getting cranky.
All right, agenda, let's see. What is it? Old business, 11.1, approval of 2020-21 district superintendent goals. Recommended action, approval of 2021 district superintendent goals as presented.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Fields. Do I have a second?
Second.
I think it was that Mrs. DiMarino.
Yep.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. All right, I got to backtrack for a second. Mr. Stubers, since we discussed amending an action item, do we need to open back up for public comment before we vote on that action item?
We are referring to item 13.2, which hasn't been amended yet, but assuming we do, I believe that the substance, that there was an adequate, it's all dealing with the same substance. It's all dealing with whether or not you're going to go virtual versus hybrid and your instructional models rather. And I believe that the public has been given a reasonable opportunity to comment on that subject matter, and I don't believe that you would be required to open it up for public comment based on an amendment to that motion.
Okay, thank you. All right, item 12, new business, approval of personnel matters, consent items. Recommended action, the board will make a motion to approve, sorry, I didn't read that. Motion to approve personnel matters, items 12.2 through 12.15. The board will make a motion to approve the following personnel matters, which are items 12.2 through 12.15 as action consent items. Any approval or appointment of personnel under these action consent items is expressly made contingent upon the district's ability to conduct or participate in the related program or activity in light of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. In the event district schools are closed or providing modified programming to unable to conduct or participate in programs or activities due to the direction or recommendations of outside agencies, including but not limited to the Pennsylvania Department of Education, the Pennsylvania Department of Health, the Governor's Office, the County Health Department, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, Pennsylvania Interscholastic Athletic Association, etc. Or 3, the district administration determines not to conduct or to participate in any program or activity to ensure the safety of students, staff, and the community. The district shall not be liable to compensate personnel appointed herein for such programs or activities. In the event some programs and activities are conducted or held on a limited basis, compensation for personnel shall be paid on a pro rata basis commensurate with the percentage of the program season activity that was held and during which students participate. participated. The decision to cancel, discontinue, and/or alter programs and activities shall be at the exclusive discretion of the district administration as previously authorized by the board pursuant of the district's health and safety plan. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Deal, do I have a second?
Second.
Dr. Melnizek, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
So Mrs. Prophet
Yes.
have a retirement on the agenda that you just approved. And so I would invite Craig Armstrong, who's on the call, to turn his video on. As soon as they see you, they're going to all go, ah. I think he fell asleep. No, we waited so long to get to this point. School board, you don't actually know him as Craig Armstrong. You know him as Captain Armstrong from our ROTC, our NJROTC instructor.
I see his name.
He's there. I know he's probably somewhere. He's dozed off, or he's too shy to take his camera off. And so Captain Armstrong has been with us for 3 years. And so we wish him all the best. We're sorry to see him go because the program has grown so much with his help and support. So we wish him all the best on his retirement today. He's too shy to turn his camera off, I guess, but he will be retiring in December. So good luck, Captain Armstrong. Thank you for all your work with our students.
Thank you.
I just want to
Thank
give a
you.
shout out to Craig because my daughter was in that program and he did a tremendous job with those kids inside and outside of school and took a lot of his own time on the weekends. And, I've seen these kids do really great things with Captain Armstrong. So Craig, thank you so much for your service. I think it's been tremendous for these kids and we're going to be missing you a lot.
Thank you, Mrs. Prophet.
All right. Item 13, new
Oh,
business.
could I just add something for, item with 13.3, naming the training room for Mr. Pearson. I did not know the man.
We will have discussion. Can we wait until we get to discussion? 'Cause
Oh.
It's not going to be the whole thing.
It's going to just be a second.
All right, go ahead.
I just want to say, from all the letters that I read about him, I just wish that I went to OJR and went to a sports program here. So that's it.
Okay. All right. 13.1 is approval of phased school and athletics reopening health and safety plan updates. Approval of the phased school and athletics reopening health and safety plan updates as presented. So just a reminder, this is not anything we just discussed.
Does it conflict with anything we just discussed?
Yeah, I was going to ask.
I was going to ask that too.
I don't believe so, Dr. Lloyd.
No, it doesn't conflict with anything you've discussed because all of that is included in the plan. That's why you're voting to update the plan. So the information that I projected on the screen was part of the new guidance that the county put out. So you adopted that into the plan. The biggest change, that's a pretty big change in and of itself for that new criteria from the county. But really the biggest change for parents in the plan is the face masks, and that tomorrow everybody will get a notice telling them that we are not permitting gaiters anymore. Our recommendation is 2-ply masks, and in this very high rate of transmission, this decision is coming at the appropriate time. So that's the biggest change to the health and safety plan.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mrs. Booth, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Friel, any discussion?
I want to say something regarding this gator topic, just real quick. And I'll be fast. I was just looking this up because I kept seeing that the CDC said it was okay to wear gaiters as long as they were doubled over. So I just kind of looked on Amazon and noticed that gaiters with ear loops that are 2-ply are widely available. And so, and I'm seeing that on page 30 of this plan, it says masks are recommended to be at least 2-ply with ear loops or ties around the head. And so I'm thinking that there are gaiters on the market that fit into that category. And so it could just say no bandanas and does not have to necessarily mention the word gaiters. If kids had gaiters that didn't have ear loops or a tie around the head or that were not 2-ply, they would not fall into that category.
I think that
That's what you see on Amazon. That's the first stuff that comes up when you look up gaiters. You see a lot of gaiters that follow that criteria.
I think the concern that Ms. Weber shared with us though, Kathy, was that it would be almost impossible to manage that because they'd have to inspect everyone for, is it 2-ply? Is it the right material? So that's what I understood her to say when we had that conversation, that discussion.
Well, I mean, I'm sure teachers are inspecting every student that comes in their room, but just
No, I
wanna
mean,
throw
to
that
get
out
up
there.
material and is it 2-ply? Do you know what I'm saying? You can't tell that by just, that's all. That's what I get what you're saying. I'm just sharing.
Yeah, well, I mean, a nylon gaiter that those kids are wearing that is obviously not 2-ply. I think it's pretty obvious, but I don't know. I just feel like this face mask rule is a difficult rule. Children are doing a remarkable job complying with it. So in my mind, why make this a huge point of contention for children who are doing already what I think is just super difficult? That's my whole point.
I think that if you end up voting for us to remain, stay the course and to remain in school, we are definitely going to have to clamp down on the masks. And so I think the timing of this change is good. I didn't anticipate this change when we revised this part of the plan, but teachers are going to appreciate the support for students wearing 2-ply masks.
Any more
So
discussion?
for the record, I was not arguing against them wearing 2-ply masks. I'm just saying.
Okay.
All right. Any more discussion? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. All right. Bryan, item 13.2, what do I need to do with this item?
Well, I think that we can,
We vote on it and then,
make a
Fail.
motion and then make a motion to amend it. I move the motion and then there can be a motion to amend.
so sorry, do you want me to have them vote on it or no?
I'm saying, there's two ways of doing it. You can move the motion as presented.
Yeah.
And once it's been moved and seconded, someone could make a motion to amend.
Mhm.
And then you vote on the motion to amend, and then you vote on the amended motion. That's one option. The other option is to vote this down and and then just have a motion from the floor to replace it.
So if we don't get a motion, if I don't get a motion for this, it fails, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. All right, item 13.2, approval of K through 12 regular education students to return to virtual learning. Due to the anticipated very high infection rates reported by the Chester County Health Department in both Chester County and the O&J Roberts School District for 3 consecutive weeks, beginning of November 6, 2020, the board will make a motion for regular education students in grades K through 12 to return to virtual learning beginning November 23rd, 2020. Special education students may continue to attend school virtually or in person up to 4 days per week. Do I have a motion? All right, I think motion fails.
Okay, then there would be an opportunity to present a motion from the floor to replace it.
So I think we're going to need 3 separate motions.
Could be. You can do it that way.
I would like to move that we stay the course for K through 6.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion passes. Someone else want to take the next one?
I move that we stay the course for middle school students.
Second.
Second, oh, yeah, don't need to do that.
Any discussion?
And just for clarification, when we say stay the course, we're referring to maintaining the current instructional model at these various grade levels.
That's correct. Maintain, yeah, if you want to change my motion or amend it to say maintain the current instructional model at the middle school level.
With all options available to parents.
Mhm.
All right, so do I need to get another motion for that, or do
No,
I need
that's-
a second?
That's good.
Okay, all right, any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes.
Okay. I'll make a motion to have the high school go virtual beginning November 23rd and 2 weeks after that.
Returning at what,
Yeah, what's
on
the end date?
November-
Who has the calendar?
I'm pulling it up. It's returning on December.
Returning
7th.
on December 3rd. Hold on. Seventh.
So going virtual the 23rd, which would only impact 2 days of that week.
To the 4th.
And
And
then
then
through the
the-
4th, returning on the 7th.
Returning on 7th.
So I just want to clarify your motion. Are you
Yes.
motioning for all students or for our
Oh.
special needs students to remain in person?
Yeah, you're sharper than I am. I would say the special needs can.
30 years of
it-
experience, Dr. Milne.
Well, I'm glad you're here. Yeah, I would amend that to have them, keep going to school as is. They can stay the course. Everybody else is doing hybrid, is going virtual for 2 weeks, starting the 23rd.
Okay. So I have a motion.
I'll second it.
I have a second. Any discussion?
I think it'll be a mess.
I think we discussed very much.
Yeah, we did. I will always abide by board consensus. I personally don't think it's good for these students to have their education broken, and not sure what it's going to prove for us, but I certainly will abide by board consensus, depending on the vote.
Even though I seconded, I don't disagree with you, Melissa. I'm really just, I want to listen to those who we said we would listen to. Because we're not the experts, and there is something out there to say that this is the right course of action. And now I will shut up because we did talk about this long enough.
Yes, we did.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Should we do
Oh, I think we have to do a roll call. Jackie?
Yep, I figured we get to that.
Hey, we did pretty well up to this point.
This is
We're
good.
still
Well,
doing well.
One other vote. This is good. I think,
Yeah,
good.
we're doing well.
All right, so just to confirm, the motion is just for the high school to move to virtual instruction from November 23rd to December 4th. Is that correct?
Correct.
Correct.
With in person for special education.
Right,
students.
other than special
The
education.
exception of special ed.
Correct.
Mrs. Stutzman,
Aye.
Ms. Prophet,
Aye.
Ms. Munson,
Aye.
Mr. Melnichek,
Aye.
Mr. Friel,
Aye.
Ms. DiMarino,
Nay.
Mr. Deal,
Nay.
Mr. DeFore,
Nay.
Mrs. Booth.
Nay.
Motion fails 5-4.
I will move that we stay the course with in-person education like we are in the other schools under the current instructional model until such time as we need to call another vote to move to virtual, if warranted.
Second.
Any discussion?
I am still very interested in what warrants
Yeah, I think that's my only question too. Because we said we would follow the guidelines and.
Right.
And the
What is our
guidelines
new-
include in-school transmission and
Right.
include the number of cases in the schools and staffing.
That's true.
If we really think that that's going to cover it and that we don't need to include some other additional measure like overwhelmed hospitals or.
I guess, shouldn't Chester County step in if the hospitals are overwhelmed?
They
I
absolutely
would
should.
hope so.
You should.
It's true.
Like I said earlier, John, they've been talking out of both sides of their mouth. So
I believe me, I understand Dr. Melnizek's point about the politicians, but these are supposed to be health professionals.
Yeah.
Yeah, they should have made this call. We shouldn't be doing this vote.
Well,
But
and
I
kind
think
of
John
have, so that's the
measured that motion's the correct one. to
The health
vote.
professionals did make a recommendation. That's
Yeah.
the point.
But
And then they said it was a recommendation, but it was up to local control,
Local government, not health.
local decision. Yeah, us.
Welcome to government for that's why you get the big paycheck, Lydia.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for that to drop in my lap.
I
After
know,
7.5 years, I'm waiting.
All the
And
people
for
that
the
get paid
record,
can't make a decision.
For the record, my nay vote that you're going to hear me say on this, I hate saying. I really want to say yay. I really want our kids back in 5 days. I really do. But it's just my brain pulls to the other side. My heart is with you. My brain pulls to the other side.
No, I agree. This is the toughest decisions we've been making. So,
yep.
And Ms. Prophet, can I clarify that if at some point, what's required to call an emergency board meeting? Is it any member? Is it a majority of members? Is it Dr. Lloyd?
That needs to call it, and it needs to be in print for, I believe it's like 24 hours, Mrs. Crumrine. But the problem is getting to print is a little more challenging. So it takes at least 2 to 3 days for us to call one.
So be it. We're probably looking at a week at a time. And most likely those schools will probably be closed already because Dr. Lloyd has the ability to do that. If it's an emergency situation, is that right, Dr. Lloyd?
What was it that we approved at the beginning of the school year, which allowed you to have that ability?
The resolution.
Yes.
You adopted it with the health plan.
And there always has been I'm not sure it's called that, but there always has been a pandemic plan for each and every school. And we've had that in the past, so that is not differing, and that will still be in Dr. Lloyd's lap.
So
I have a question. Can I just ask a question about John's motion? So, item 13.1, or I'm sorry, 13.2 failed. So we made an additional motion to keep elementary school in, and middle school, and then John M. made a motion to have high school students go to all virtual, but that motion failed. So I don't see why we need John Deal's motion, because 13.2 already failed. They're already in staying course unless we do something else.
Mr. Stubers, what do you think?
Might be right.
That's a point.
It's true, but I think based on the prior discussion, I think there was a sentiment to reiterate your position through a motion.
So we'll just vote on it.
Just yeah.
So I'm just going to say from my perspective, my yes vote for moving to virtual for high school for 2 weeks is because I'm really concerned that we're not going to have the staff to support our high school. I don't believe we have transmission in our high school. I believe we've had individual cases from outside sources, but I believe our high school has been doing a phenomenal job. I'm just very concerned about the staffing shortage. So,
and if we don't have the staff, there's nothing we can do about it.
Right. Yeah.
But I have no problem supporting this motion. So
I do. I have the same concern. When Montgomery County closed, and I think it's going to be the kids. We're going to have a staff issue, but I don't really have a problem with the motion either.
all right, so we did our discussion. Any other discussion? Do we want to do a roll call? All in favor? Yes, everyone. We do roll call.
Will you restate the motion one more time? Mr. John Deal, say it again.
The motion is to continue with our current instructional model. I think I would leave it at that.
9 through 12.
Right.
For 9 through 12, correct.
Thank you.
and essentially all schools. So it's 9 to
We
12,
already
not to
approved the other
confuse things.
schools. We already approved the other schools. Just
That's
do the
fine,
high
9 to
school. All
12.
right. Any discussion?
Yeah.
Don't mess with the motion. All right. All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Nay. And I would just add, I thank you all for this lively discussion. It's been interesting, and I know all of us are doing what's best for our kids. So thank you.
I just want to make sure we got the nays.
Prophet, I just want to confirm that Ms. Stutzman and Mr. Melnizek were the 2 nays. Were there any other nays?
I was a nay also.
Mr. Creel,
Mhm.
correct? And can we do
Creel, Melnizak, and Stutzman were the 3 nays.
Okay.
Just like we're just like the Supreme Court.
Yeah, right. And I would second John's sentiment. I appreciate all you guys, and I know we're all really batting for the same thing, just in different ways.
Yep.
Same here. Doesn't do anything to deconstruct the working relationship that we built.
And even
Thank you.
just in general, just for the public to know, like, it's not, I'm not banging my fist. It's a no-win. It's a no-win.
Yeah, there's just no good answers here.
Okay, we're done.
And after this is over, let's have a group hug.
Enough with the love fest. I think
Socially distanced.
the motion passes.
After
gotta
it's
keep
To
over.
apply masks.
We've got to keep
After we
moving.
get our vaccines.
We still have agenda items.
All
Yeah,
right.
it's 10:04. Let's go.
Motion passes, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
It is
Item
10:04.
13. Item 13.3, approval of naming committee recommendation. Approval of naming committee recommendation as per policy 701.1, naming of school district facilities to name the training room, Ronald C. Pearson Training Room, as recommended by the Buildings and Ground Committee from the Committee of the Whole meeting held on November 9th, 2020. Do I have a motion?
So
So
moved.
That was Stutzman.
This is just,
I keep getting passed over for my moves and my seconds, so I'm
You
gonna
get,
shout
you
it out
definitely
there.
get the move. You get the move.
do I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Booth, any discussion?
Well, the only thing I'd like to say is the details will be forthcoming. We have to look at exactly how it's going to appear, when it's going to appear, and where it's going to appear. So those details will follow.
Correct.
I'd just say thanks to the community for all the feedback that they provided. And certainly I echo Dr. John's comments. Kind of wish I knew Mr. Pearson other than through emails.
And I apologize, I jumped the gun back there. But
I told you.
I'm stubborn and I misread it. So
Okay.
what I said before, I'm going to say now. So there you go.
Okay.
It's okay. It's your first offense.
How many
I
do I
won't throw the
get?
gavel at you yet. All right.
Yeah, the community support for Mr. Pearson was overwhelming. It was really
Yeah, great.
heartwarming, wonderful to read all the stories
Yeah.
and personal experiences.
And
Some good emails to get for a change, you know? That's good.
Yeah.
Right.
And that was the point of the naming committee, to ask for community input on that. And the community came through very well.
All right. Any more discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. All right. 13.4, approval of 21-22 high school program of study changes. Approval of the 21-22 high school program of studies changes is recommended by the Curriculum and Instruction Committee for the November 9th, 2020 Committee of the Whole meeting as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mrs. DiMarino, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. DeFore, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 13.5, approval of policies for second reading. Approval of policies for second reading from the Legislative and Policy Committee meeting on October 12th, 2020. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I'm sorry, I jumped it.
Mrs. Munson, do I have a second?
Second.
Dr. Melnizek, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. 13.6, approval of transfer of accounts. Approval of transfer accounts recommended by the school district's auditor to close the general fund, capital reserve fund, capital projects fund, and the internal service fund for the school year ended July 30th, 2020 as presented. Do I have a motion?
A motion to approve.
Mr. Friel, do I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Booth, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 13.7, approval of overnight recertification course, approval for James Weiss, district plumber, to attend the ASSE backflow prevention assembly testers repair recertification course from January 4th through 6th, 2021 in Pittston, PA. Expenses to the district will be approximately $1,500. The recertification is required every 3 years. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
So moved.
Mr. Friel, do I have a second?
Second.
Dr. Melnizek, any discussion?
We certainly wouldn't want any backflow not to work.
I
You are
can't
dying
imagine
to say
spending
that.
January 4th to 6th in Pittston, PA, but okay.
Well, and there's no fear of travel lockdowns that would be within Pennsylvania, right?
These courses are not in
Holy.
line. Just,
Yeah.
Right.
It's a good question, Jennifer, but I haven't seen with interstate restrictions yet, so probably
So
not.
mostly between states. So
Yeah.
hopefully he'll not
They'd
be under
probably
any.
cancel the course if there were.
Yeah, and just for, this is one of those ones that I feel like might get public comment, which might be good to know, that it is required every 3 years, and it would cost more to have a contractor do the service for us than it would to just certify the person that we employ.
Very good point.
Yes, good point.
Thank you. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. All right. 13.8, approval to amend policies 008 and 008.1, approval to amend policy 008, organizational chart of accountability, and policy 008.1, total annual positions for 2021 school year. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mrs. Booth, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Deal, any discussion? All
Yeah.
in favor? Oh,
I was just going to say kudos to LMP committee.
Oh, shucks.
any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Oh, you're back, Mr. Subers. And you're muted. We can't. Sanfran.
I got it.
Do it. Don't do it, Leslie. Leave him muted.
I apologize.
No, I'm going to need him in a couple minutes. All right. 13.9, approval of student activity club advisors and student officers. Approval of student activity clubs, advisors, and student officers in accordance with the provisions of section 511 of the Pennsylvania School Code for the 2021 school year as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Deal, do I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. DiMarino, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. 13.10, approval of professional services and or maintenance agreements, approval of professional services and or maintenance agreements as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I, Mr. Deal, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Friel, any
Lydia, give it to Lydia.
I already gave it to Mr. Friel. Any discussion?
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. All right. Item 13.11. I'll pull up what that motion was. 13.11, to retain Chester County Intermediate Unit to conduct a confidential superintendent search pursuant to its proposal, providing for a waiver of all fees for staff time and limiting district cost to reimbursement of actual expenses. Do I have a motion?
Motion to proceed.
Mr. Friel, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. DeFore, any discussion? I will just say, there was a public comment earlier in the night suggesting that we do not appoint a new superintendent and we wait until the next board that would come in December of next year, appoint a new superintendent. I just wanted to highlight what that would look like in terms of costs. So in terms of cost for an interim superintendent, it's about $800 a day. If we were to appoint an interim superintendent from July 1st of 2021 until it would have to be well past the new appointment. So yeah, the new appointment would come in December. You'd add in probably 7 more months for the process to go again. And it wouldn't be in probably till July 1 of 2022 that we'd be hiring a new superintendent. So I just wanted to highlight that. So that's $800 a day. You're looking at probably over $200,000, which would be more than what a superintendent, or a little bit more than what a superintendent is making. So I just think that to wait that long doesn't seem feasible. And it feels like it's more cost effective. It's not very cost effective. So
I would just like to add on top of that, besides the cost, the longer you delay, an interim superintendent really does not do anything. So the district will be standing still. And also a new board, not knowing who's even going to be running, a new board, if they start the search as soon as they're seated, they really won't know that much about what they need to look for. I know it's a difficult position to be in. We were in that last time, and that's exactly how we felt. We were going to get chastised if we did it or if we didn't do it. So I think the same holds true this time. We need to act swiftly and efficiently, and I feel it's the best way to go.
Plus to have crossover time, overlap between Dr. Lloyd and a new superintendent would be best case scenario.
Yeah.
In my mind.
I agree.
And also, I believe only 3 seats are up in
4.
2021. There are 4? Okay.
Always 4.
Still not a majority.
No, not a majority. But there will be 4 seats up.
all right, any more discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. All right, we're going on to public comments. So I've had a request to limit public comment tonight because we're already at 10:15. Does not mean that you're not able to contact us. You're always able to contact us and share your opinions. And we will also have another board meeting December 7th. So we're going to limit this. What's everyone's threshold?
Do 30 minutes. Would that be
Fine
fair?
with that.
I think that's reasonable.
Is everyone in agreement?
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, yeah.
Sure.
All right, we're going to limit public comment to 30 minutes. All right, item 14, public comment, information, proposals, and statements from individuals or delegations pertaining to any item. Speakers are to indicate your name and township of residence. Speakers will be limited to not more than 3 minutes. Please understand that this is not a time for dialogue with the board. Rather, the board will listen to all comments and consider them in future deliberations. Just a reminder, you are able to contact us at schoolboardmembers@ojrsd.net, and you will receive a written response. And then just a guideline, if you'd like to make a comment, please use the raise hand function. And when it's your turn to speak, please state your name and township of residence.
Madam President, the first person is Mark DeFusco.
Hi, my name is Mark DeFusco from East Coventry Township. I'm also the president of the Roberts Education Association. I want to say that you have around 800 employees in this district, and you should also consider their health in these decisions. The staff does not have a choice in whether they come to work or not, but they will be there doing their best for the kids and community every day. However, the district did create a safety plan that incorporates the PA Department of Education, the PA Department of Health, and the CHOP recommendations to protect the community, and we are now ignoring it. That's disrespectful to the efforts of all those who put their hard work into it. PDE, the PA Department of Health, and CHOP have all recommended that schools switch to the virtual model when community transmission is at the substantial or very high level. There aren't qualifiers at that level. The recommendation is virtual. And we are shooting past that level. CHOP had previously been of the opinion that in-person education for students outweighed the risk at the moderate level of community transmission. They have now reversed course because it is of the extremely high levels in our area and district, and now say that the infection risks outweigh the benefits of in-person instruction. The levels are rising exponentially, and there's no let up in sight. Is it just a coincidence that these numbers have started to rise so rapidly as schools across the county increase in-person instruction? I doubt it. You have no data for transmissions at this level of community transmission. It is irresponsible to continue to put hundreds of people in these buildings. We appreciate the benefits of in-person instruction. However, the board is putting its employees, students, and all of our families at risk. It seems that everyone is unaware that there's a pandemic raging outside of our doors. Are we going to wait until there is a death? It is irresponsible to go against the recommendations of the PA Department of Health, Chester County Health Department, and the Pennsylvania Department of Education. Going against these recommendations of these entities will open our district up to liability when something does happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeFusco.
Madam President, next person is Missy. Missy, please give your full name and township of residence.
My name's Melissa Barish, and I'm in North Coventry Township. I have a student in North Coventry and a high schooler. First, I wanted to say, to good luck to Dr. Lloyd in her retirement, and thank you for her service. The second was, I didn't envy you the decision that you had to make, and I'm glad that you did debate for as long as you did about the decision. I'm fine with the decision. I'm actually very happy. My son decided to stay virtual and he made that decision, so that was fine. I'm glad that my daughter is able to go to school 2 days a week for the live teaching. My comment is more towards, now that you've decided to stay the course, maybe look a little deeper into the actual hybrid part of it. I am a stay-at-home mom, so I am, closely monitoring my kids when they, do their work during the day. And I know especially with my elementary kids, the days that are asynchronous, there really isn't a lot of work to be done. And a lot of it, the accelerate isn't, to me, that great of a program. So I would just hope that maybe you could look a little bit more into standards across the board, maybe, how long teachers should be on with students, things like that. But I thank you for your time. Thanks.
Thank you, Mrs. Barish.
Madam President, that's the end of public comment.
All right. Item 15, board discussion and follow-up. Any discussion?
Just like to thank Dr. Lloyd for assembling all the data that she shared with us over the weekend, late last week. Just thanks for all the information. It just, as we pointed out numerous times, that nobody has a crystal ball, but I appreciate you keeping us updated.
Hear, hear.
Yes, I agree. We have read multitudes of data, multiple studies. I think we are all probably as up to date with all this information as we could possibly be. But thanks to everyone, very difficult decision, difficult situation we find ourselves in.
Well, and I think the important thing for anybody to take away from this is that no matter what the schools are doing, it is important that the community protect themselves as individuals. And if these things are working in the school, wearing a double layered mask, staying 6 feet away from people, then there's reason to believe that it will work in the community too. And we should take these measures as individuals and make sure that our friends and family who don't have children in school understand that they are part of the picture too, and everyone can help.
Good point.
Yeah.
Well said.
Anyone else? All right, I want to thank everyone for the respectful dialogue. This was some really hard decisions, and everyone's really looking out for the best interests of everyone in this school district, not just our students. And based off of what we've seen with this health and safety plan and how it's been implemented, we haven't had transmission in our schools, and we are looking out for the best interests of everyone. We're going to get in trouble with someone no matter what we do. So that's for sure. Everyone happy. All right.
I'd like to spend your 30th birthday, Leslie. Come on.
Oh, this is great. Now, you know what? I'm happy to do it. So Item 16, board requests for information. Any information requests? No? Okay. All right, item 17, we're adjourning.
Oh,
Everyone,
good evening, everyone.
Thank you, guys. Goodbye.
good night.
Thank
Enjoy the rest.
Thanks, Brian.